This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's going on? We're not live yet, are we? Hello?
Well, guys, sorry about that. It seems as though we have a few little gremlins that have creeped in with James. But welcome to this afternoon's show. As you can see, we're just starting out our bushwalk. Herbie and I have just been discussing him getting electrocuted on a fence, which was quite funny. We had us both giggling. You can see Herbie's disappearing now through the bush as he leads us out for this afternoon. My name is Tristan, and on camera I've got David this afternoon. And remember that we are coming to you live, so it's interactive, which means we want to hear from all of you on #SafariLive if you would like to ask any questions or have any comments. Right, now the plan for this afternoon, before we do anything, is that Herbie said this morning is that he saw a track and he's not sure of exactly what track it is. He thinks it might be either a bush baby or a very big frog. So we're going to go and try and check on this track quickly because Herbie said he wants a second opinion. So that's where our starting point at Gallagher Pan. And then from there, we're going to probably head a little bit more to the west and see if maybe we can follow the tracks that we had for, or that Ralph had for that male leopard this morning. So we'll try and see if we can do that, as well as just explore and see what else is out here. It's such a beautiful afternoon, and after a bit of rain like we had yesterday, maybe, just maybe, we might get something interesting out today. Maybe there might even be some insects around, which I would be surprised if there are, but you never know. Maybe we'll find something as they go. So that's the kind of plan for today and for the sort of afternoon bushwalk. Hopefully it will be a productive one. Also, with the sort of weather that we've got, we might have a situation where we're going to be able to get some ellies coming down for water. So I hope I'm going to try and loop around to some sort of water point, maybe Gowrie Dam, towards the end of the afternoon, and hopefully we'll have ellies coming down and maybe having a little drink there. That's, like I say, the plan for the afternoon, and hopefully it will be executed very, very well. We'll see. These things sometimes don't go according to plan, and so hopefully we will get something. Right, well, while we get our way to Gallagher Pan and I get Dave through these thickets that he's struggling to walk through, let's send you back across to James, who apparently has got his comms and also has a beautiful antelope.
We do. We have a common and beautiful antelope, the impala, Epsiris melampus. Welcome to this end of the sunset safari. My name is James Henry, as most of you will know, I imagine, if you are regular watchers, and if you aren't a regular watcher, you're most welcome. For a very rare occasion, I've got Gendry with me on camera. There he is. The insults will flow to and from throughout the course of this drive, no doubt. Please talk to us using the #SafariLive on Twitter, of course, and the chat stream on YouTube. I don't know if Tristan said this, but I believe we have got a group of school kids joining us at 10 minutes after 3. During which time we'll be taking their questions. They are from a class that doesn't, of foreign language speakers. In other words, they're not English first language speakers, so the questions should be interesting. I can't wait to find out what languages they're going to come through in and whether or not I will be able to answer them. That's what's happening at 10 past 3. Our plan today is to go towards the middle of the reserve and find, hopefully, Tundi the leopard, aged nearly 13, and her daughter Tlalamba, aged 9 months odd. That's going to be our plan. We're just going to sit here for a little while, reveling in the glory of a 24-degree day out here. That's 76 Fahrenheit. And what a joy to be in this sort of temperature in the middle of winter. We've had a nasty cold front flowing through this area for the last, I think 7 days or so, and finally it seems to have disappeared, which is a great relief to all concerned. Alrighty, let us head across now while we move off to the great Sydney Mkosi.
A very good afternoon, everyone. I am Sydney, and I'm going to be with you again on this afternoon game drive. I am a very good afternoon, everyone. I am Sydney, and I am not alone this afternoon. I'm traveling with my photographer. We are both going to be with you on this activity, and hopefully you are all going to enjoy our afternoon experience here by the Juma Game Reserve this afternoon. My plan for this afternoon is very easy. I am going to look for the general game, but the most target it is going to be the cats. So I just got updated that the cats, they were roaming around earlier this morning by the western boundary of the game reserve. So that is where we are going to try our luck this afternoon. Yeah, let's carry on and see what you can find by the western boundary. Now this no tracks, still very quiet on the ground. So we can now go to James. James, maybe already he got something for you.
Hello, everybody from the Polo Road Elementary School. I hope you're enjoying your day at school. Seems a bit rough that you're at school in summertime. Anyway, that's how it goes. My name is James, and John Dre is on camera, and we're going to look for a spotted cat known as a leopard out here. You can send your questions to us. We'd love to have any questions or comments that you'd like to send. Just tell your teacher, he or she will send them through to us, and I will do my best to answer your questions. We're sitting here in the western fringes of the great Kruger National Park in South Africa on a place called Juma Private Game Reserve, and we're doing our best to find some of Africa's iconic species. Elephants perhaps, leopards, lions, crested francolins for example. So that's a special bird known as a crested francolin. It's disappeared now, has it? Oh, well, it's a sort of ground-dwelling bird. Well, it's not sort of ground-dwelling, it is ground-dwelling. A little bit like, I suppose, a grouse that you might find in the United States. There are lots and lots of them. They make a big noise going into the evening or also in the morning. They're one of the first birds that gets out of bed in the morning. Here they come. They're just going to come out onto the road now, just in front of us. If we talk nice and quietly, they might come out. Come on, crested francolins. They're looking for little insects if they can find them. Grass seeds especially, that's their favourite food. There we are. There you can see. Very perfectly camouflaged. And that means, of course, that their colours are perfect for this environment. Fernando, to be a guide, you don't have to be very old at all. In this country, you have to be 22 years old or more. I'm a little bit more, not much. And that's because for legal requirements, if you're going to take people on a drive and be responsible for their lives, then you need to be that age. But to do what I'm doing, there's really no sort of upper age limit. As long as you've got a driving license, you can do what I do, and that happens at about 18 years old. But to do what I do, you do need a little bit of experience. It's very helpful if you've got sort of between 3 and 5 years of experience out here in the bush, so that you know about the trees and the birds and the insects and that sort of thing, and not only the big animals. Because if you only know about the big animals, well, as you can see, the big animals are not always all over the place. So you need to be able to talk about trees and birds like the crested francolin. You also need to learn how to follow footprints.
You do, James. When you're out in the bush, it is the best thing to be able to learn how to follow footprints of the animals, because that can always help you find the animals, especially in an area like this. And that's exactly what we're doing this afternoon. We're going to be out on foot, and we're going to try and see if we can find you some very interesting things. Now, my name is Tristan. On camera, I've got David this afternoon, and he says a very big hello to all of you. Now, what we're busy looking at over here is something that looks very, very difficult to see. Now, if you have a look in the sand, I'll just do a little circle around it so that you can see what I'm talking about. But inside the circle here, you'll see that there's little lines that are coming forward, and a little kind of back sort of part there, and another little line, and some more lines there. Now, this track over here is for a big frog. Now, you would think that frogs wouldn't leave tracks behind, but they do. So they have these big feet with long toes, and basically what's happened is the frog has landed, and then it's jumped, and here's the next place that it's landed over here, and then the next one is even further away. So it's just jumping along. Actually, sorry, there's the next one. 1, 2, 3, and so it's bounding along down the road. Now, we know it's a frog because if we have a look here in our book, you can see if you look at their feet, they've got a number of little digits coming off that are very, very long, with a sort of bulbous end to the, or a big swollen end at the sort of tip of the finger, and that leaves these little tracks. So if you look in this picture over here in the mud, you have a situation where there is a sort of little toes coming off, which is exactly the same as the track we've got here. Now, you can confuse this track with another animal which is not a frog. It is a type of mammal called a bush baby. Now, a bush baby is basically a little nocturnal primate or monkey. It's kind of related to the monkeys. It's not a monkey, but it's related to them. And they come out at night and they kind of jump around, and they're very, very small. They're only about this big, and they've got small little feet, and it can look quite similar to this. But the thing about bush babies is that they have thumbs like us. And so if there was a bush baby here, you would have this track like you see here, and off the side of it would be a little thumbprint on both sides, and it would be much easier to see, and you'd have a situation where you would know then that it's a bush baby. So very, very cool track to see. It's not something that you see every day, especially not in the winter months, because you have a situation where in winter everything gets quite dry, and so not too many frogs are around. So we're going to try and pick up our book and carry on walking down the road here and see what we can find. But Emily, you want to know what it takes to be a guide. So it depends on how you do it. Many, many different guides will do it in different ways. Oh, what do we need to learn? Oh, Emily needs to learn lots of things. And the best thing about being a guide is that you constantly learn. So you're always learning every single day you're out here. And the reason why is because animals are not... They don't read a book, so they're not going to take this book out and they're not going to read it and say, okay, I have to walk that way, I have to eat these things, I have to do those things. That's not how it is. They will be animals are sort of go into areas, and depending on what happens in nature, if there's not enough rain or if there's too much rain, they will adapt, which means that they will try and find a way to live in those areas. And so as a guide, you have the same situation. You have to learn kind of every day from the animals, and every day that you're out here, you experience new things. But you do need to start with a kind of base knowledge. And so we go to training schools, which will teach us about animals, birds, insects, amphibians, geology, which is the study of the earth, basically, weather and climate, as well as things like tracking. And so these are all things that you'll use as a guide, and then as you work, so you will learn more and more and more and more. It's very, very good job to have. Super interesting, and we get to see a lot of different things, which is really, really nice. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try and kind of carry on and go up through this little thicket, because we're going to try and see if we can find you guys a leopard on foot. There was tracks for a male leopard here this morning, and so what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and see if we can find his tracks and maybe follow them and see if we can find him. We have to be very careful when we do that. We have to pay attention to the wind, make sure that we know which way the wind is blowing, and we have to keep our eyes open and our voices down. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and head through here and see what happens. And while we do that, you need to meet the third member of our team this afternoon, which is Sydney.
Now I have got one of the very beautiful animals. You can see there is quite a few of them, the warthogs. I know a lot of people, they have got a confusion between the warthogs as well as their close relative, the bush pig. So the warthogs, they are diurnal, meaning that they are more active during the daytime, whereas the bush pigs are active during the night. Both bush pigs and warthogs, they are omnivores, So they both feed on plants and meat. But the bush pig, high percentage of their diet is more on meat, whereas the warthogs, they spend much time grazing. So the warthogs, a group of them together is called a sounder. So a male, we call it a bow. A female is called a sow. So whenever you see the warthogs running away, they normally lift up their tails. It serves as a follow me sign to show the others within the family that we are going to this side. So the warthogs are not that very much aggressive. And a lot of them, they are staying under the ground. So I've got a question. I'm just going to take this question and then I will carry on. Now there is a question about the lifespan of the warthog. I'm not too sure when it comes to the lifespan of the warthog, but I will investigate. Then I will come back to you soon as I'm well updated. But I do have a manual with me here, which can assist us in order to get hold of the longevity of these warthogs. Let me just quickly see if I can find something whereby we can get that information. So I'm just trying to get all my manuals here. Yeah, it seems to be very difficult for me to get hold of the page where the warthogs are. So I will come back to you before I finish with this activity. So let me just get back to the behavior a little bit about these majestic, beautiful animals. The warthogs, they are staying under the ground. They don't stay on the ground. The bush pigs is the ones that are staying on the ground. Yes, some of these warthogs, you can find them rarely staying on the ground. So while I'm still carrying on looking for more interesting animals, I am going to now to James. James is going to take us through something. I'm sure he's got an interesting story on his side.
There is a hornbill. That is called a red-billed hornbill. Red bill is another way of saying beak. There you can see, he's looking for insects ideally. But at this time of the year in the winter, he must be satisfied with less than his favourite diet. So he will eat some seeds from time to time. He'll eat the old lizard if he can get hold of it. Possibly, if he can, some old berries. There are a few trees around that still have old berries on them that aren't ripe anymore. They're overripe. But a difficult time of the year for the birds here, and that's why, of course, probably about 50% of them, half of them, go off to the northern hemisphere where it's summertime now, where they can find insects and grass seeds and that sort of thing to eat. All right, let's carry on. Haven't had any luck with finding any leopard tracks or any leopards at this stage, but we might get lucky a little bit later. L'Oreal, it really depends on the bird. These birds sleep on tree branches, so they'll go and find a branch of a tree somewhere where there's a little bit of leaf cover, and they can sit and hide from something like an owl or a genet, which is like a cat, and might try and eat them in the night. So most birds will sleep in trees. Some of birds will sleep on the ground, very few, because of course most of the predators move around on the ground. But the most interesting thing is that some birds are able to sleep while they fly. So some of the swift species are able to fly around, and they close down half of their brain at a time. So basically, one half of the brain will have a rest, and while the other half keeps the bird in the air, and then they'll swap around like that. So they're able to sleep while they're flying, and the swifts are the most obvious example of birds like that. There's another bird just up ahead here. It's called a starling, and it's very shiny. Ooh! There it is on the top of that tree there. I also saw a woodpecker fly past. See it shining there in the sun. Beautiful starling. And you can see it's got a yellow eye. So we know it's one of two starlings. The greater blue-eared glossy starling or the Cape glossy starling. So there's a bit of a mouthful. Cape glossy starling or greater blue-eared glossy starling. I've been saying those words for years and years, and I still get tongue-tied when I have to say greater blue-eared glossy starling too many times. They're also insect eaters if they can be. Well, that hornbill bird has such a big beak, Stephanie, because it's used to pick. It's the most ideal beak for its food. Some of the foods that it eats, for example, would be termites, so it'll sit on a termite mound and it'll be able to get inside the termite mound. It uses that beak to dig in elephant dung, so it's not only used to pick up food, it's used as a digging device. That's probably the main reason it's that long. But that whole family of hornbills, and there are lots and lots of them all over the world except for in the Americas, they're found all the way around through Africa and the Palearctic. Well, those birds have all got long beaks, all those hornbills. Yeah, I think it's just to help them dig and to pick up their food. But they've got all sorts of different kinds of beaks. But the shape of the beak is normally a good indicator of what the bird eats. Alrighty, let's carry on. I think Tristan is still following his footprints.
I am following footprints, and we found a footprint for the animal that I mentioned earlier, but just not a very fresh one. So when I talk about fresh tracks, when we're out here, we need to try and be able to tell the difference between a footprint that, let's say, a leopard made last week and a footprint that a leopard made today. Because if they made a footprint from last week, we're going to walk for kilometers and miles, and we're going to take all our time trying to find it, and we won't find it. But if it's something that's from today, then it makes it much easier to know that that's an animal that we need to follow, or those tracks are the ones that we need to follow in order to find it. And so I've got two tracks here in the different circles. Now, the one track, which is this one over here, you can see it's almost not even there. It doesn't look like anything here, it just looks like a bit of the road. But if I if you follow the stick or the shadow, on this outer edge here is the edge of the pad, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 lobes that come forward, and then here is a toe, 1 toe, 2 toes, 3 toes, and the 4th toe over here. So this is for a male leopard. Now, the reason I know it's a male leopard is because one is the size. If I put my sort of hand down, it's quite big. So it's almost the size of my palm, which is about the right size for a male leopard. A female would be a little bit smaller, and it wouldn't be a lion, because lions, you would have found lots of other tracks with this, because this would be a very small lion. It would be a young to still look after it, and so you would find mom's tracks possibly with it, or its siblings, or some other members of the pride. The other thing is that we know it's a cat because of those 3 lobes at the back. When you have a dog will only have 2 lobes, whereas a cat, which I'm going to draw for you, I'm going to try not to destroy this, but we try and make it a little bit easier for you to see, there, like that, it's got those 3 kind of little lobes at the back, and we call those lobes because they kind of stick off the pad. Now, this particular track is very difficult to see because this track is old. Okay, it's from Sunday. We think around Sunday we had a male leopard that walked in this area, and yesterday we had a bit of rain. That means that the track was actually smoothed out, and the wind that's been blowing, sand has been blown on top. Now, the other track that I circled is from something that a leopard likes to eat, and it's called an impala, which is a type of antelope, much like your deers at home. And these impalas, you can see this track is very easy to see. You see, it almost looks like a heart that we've got here, and that's because this was made today. So the impala walked here probably this morning, and it's got a hard hoof, and so that dug into the sand and made these very easy to see lines that show us that there's an impala track here. Now, the leopard wouldn't leave as deep a marking, and that's because the leopard has all its weight spread over a very large foot, whereas an impala's got a very small foot, and so all its weight is going there, and that means it digs a little bit deeper. But the leopard track would be far easier to see if it was a fresh track. So it's not the track we're looking for, but it's an indication that leopards are moving around in this area, and we need to pay attention because maybe we can find a better one that's around here somewhere. And if there's things like impalas around, then you can be sure that leopards will move into those sections to be able to try and find them. So we'll try and see if maybe we can find some more tracks and maybe then lead us to a leopard. Now, Uriel, leopards will sleep, well, day and night, so they're very, very interesting animals. Most of the time, though, they're more active around sunset and sunrise, and so they're called a crepuscular animal. So it's a big word to say and very difficult to say, but crepuscular basically means they are active when the sun rises or when the sun sets. So they will sleep a little bit at night and a little bit at the day, but because here in Africa, most of the days are very, very hot, particularly sort of from like 9 o'clock in the morning until about sort of 4 in the afternoon. It's very warm for the animals. And so that's when they generally will seek shelter, and that's when they'll sleep. But if there's something to be hunted, or if there's an intruder in their territory, then you will see them walking around even in the hot periods of the day. So they don't have a sort of schedule like we do, where we will sort of sleep at night only. They are whenever the sort of opportunity comes, they will be able to kind of use it. Now, Emily, in terms of tracking, the best time for me is early in the morning. So when you wake up and the sun just rises, you get this very soft light. So the sun hasn't gotten too bright just yet, and it comes from an angle. And so what happens is when the sun comes from an angle, it hits a track and it creates a little bit of a shadow. Now, the shadow from the edge, it makes it much easier to be able to see. If you have a situation where you have a track that is in bright sunlight when the sun is right above it, it flattens almost and it becomes a lot harder to find those tracks. So early in the morning and very late in the evening are the best times to be tracking. But for me, early in the morning, because that's when everything kind of settles down and the nighttime animals move around. So things like lion and leopard like to move around, and there's no people that are moving around and no cars, and that makes it then a nice, clean, fresh place for the animals to move. And then in the morning you can find those tracks. So for me, morning, but late afternoon, if the sun is low down, also a very good time to be tracking as well. Right, now, we just have to, when we walk, keep our eye out and always make sure we're watching what we're doing and where we're walking, because we don't want to try to make too much noise. The animals out here, they know, they can hear and they can see, and so if you make too much noise, they're going to run away before we see them. So we have to keep a little bit quiet and watch where we're going. And so while I watch where I'm going and see if I can find you something interesting, let's send you across to Sydney.
Yeah, I've got a very interesting sighting here. There is some kudus browsing. So these kudus, if we can observe there very nicely, you will see that they don't spend much time feeding by the same tree. Because when these kudus are feeding there, the tree is going to react, and they react by releasing something which is going to stimulate the tannin. So they react by releasing what is called tannin. Tannin is a poison the trees are using in order to regulate the browsing activities. And once the leaf is broken, it stimulates the other trees nearby of the same species so that they can also raise the level of tannin in order to minimize the browsing activities. So these kudus, they are going to feed by that plant just for a while, and shortly after that they must have to move, because if they don't do that, they are going to experience a problem with regards to the digestibility. Yeah, because when there is no balance between the amount of food taken and the digestibility. There is a question, I didn't get that question properly, but it's from Stefani. If you can just bring me that question again. Yeah, I was saying the kudus, they will move on to the next tree because they know otherwise their digestive system is going to get negatively affected. So what happens there is that when it's feeding, the amount of food taken, there must have to be a balance between the tannin in the leaves and the detoxification process. If there is no balance between the two, the kidney and the livers get affected, and that is what is going to kill an animal. So sometimes it's very difficult to identify a poisoned animal until it dies. It's only when we can discover that that was as a result of poison from the trees. So very inquisitive. You can see there is even a bird on top of that kudu on the right. That is the oxpecker. So the oxpecker, their responsibilities there is to clean these kudus. So they've got a very interesting mutualistic relationship. So the oxpecker is getting ticks as food, whereas the kudus are getting they are being cleaned. So that is the dependency between this kudu and the oxpeckers. It is a mutualism. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I am going to carry on and see if we can find you something interesting. Now we will be heading towards the eastern side. I have already covered the western side. So there is a question from Yurio about the stripes. Why do these kudus have stripes? The stripes on kudus, they are there in order to help them when it comes to the detection. So they always use their stripes to match their surrounding. It's always very difficult for a predator to single one kudu out. So it's like it's too many kudus in one. So they help them when it comes to the predation process. Sometimes you will see when they see something, when they're threatened, they run away with their tail up. When the tail is lifted up, you will see a very bright fluffy hairs. And that is there just to give a confusion, so that when they get to the thick bushes, they're going to have to lower the tail again. So we are now going to James. James has got something interesting to show you on the other side. I'm going to carry on again this side, look for more animals.
Here we have got a hippopotamus. Now this hippopotamus is known as Scuba Steve, and he sits in this waterhole, and last week he had a friend who we called Sarah, but it seems that Scuba Steve no longer has his friend Sarah, which is very, very sad. He's all on his own. Now if you look carefully also, we can see the path that Scuba Steve travelled to get to where he is. You can see all the mud in the water there. So when we got here, he wasn't where he is now, and then he moved away across to this little sort of deeper part of the water that he likes to sit in. And he likes to be there because it makes him feel secure. He feels like he's safe there. He can go completely under the water, which of course he can't do if the water isn't deep enough. And now he's gone, completely gone. There are also some other creatures in this water which are quite interesting, and they are like terrestrial, or not terrestrial, like freshwater turtles. And if you look down there, you can see 4 or 5 of them all over the place. I'm afraid, Andy, I missed your question, so I'm going to ask for it again. Not from you, Andy, from Louise, who's directing us. Andy, a baby hippo is known as a calf. A hippo calf, same as a cow. A hippo bull, like Scuba Steve. A male hippo is called a bull. A female, like Sarah, who's left Steve all alone here in the water, is known as a cow. And if they were to have children, which clearly they're not going to at this stage, they would be known as calves, hippo calves. Poor old Scuba Steve. He was alone for so long, and now he's had a friend, and now he doesn't have a friend anymore. Aaron, hippopotamus, believe it or not, are grass eaters. So he will get out of the water every evening and go for a walk, and he will find some grass to eat. Obviously he has to eat quite a lot of grass because he's enormous. He weighs 2,500 kilograms, which is around about 6,000 pounds, 5,500 pounds. So he weighs an enormous amount, and obviously needs quite a lot of food to keep that big body going. You can tell that it's very quiet around here, not a lot of sound, and that's typical on a warm winter's afternoon like we're having over here. I'm just going to scan with my binoculars to see if perhaps we haven't missed a predator lying somewhere in the shade. Predators like to be around waterholes because animals come down to drink quite regularly, and so they'll often lie waiting in the shade for some poor creature that comes down to have a peaceful drink. Ooh, Tristan's got a predator, but it's got more than 4 legs.
It does, James. It's got 8 legs, which makes it, well, probably a scary, scary animal for many, many people out there. And it's a spider. And the thing is, at this time of the year, is it's very difficult to actually find spiders because it's winter time now, and so there's not much food around. And so the spiders, some of them, will not actually live the whole year. They'll die and they'll lay their eggs and then die. But others will go and hide away. And this spider we found is, we're very lucky because it's out in the open and it's still around. So what we have here is called a tropical tent web spider. Now, it's called a tent web spider because it builds a very, very interesting type of web. It has this basic structure that runs on top like this, and then often in the middle there's a little point that comes up, and so that's why it is called a tent. It's very difficult to see it now because the light is not good, but it normally looks just like a tent if it was put up right, and in the early morning when there's a little bit of dew on the web you can see it very, very clearly. Now, the spider I'm talking about is actually over there. Now, I'm trying not to touch the web because I don't want to disturb the spider, but can you see it, David? Yeah. There it is. It's just moved a little bit. So it is a very small little brown spider. It's not that easy to see, but at least it's out in the open. You don't often actually get to see the little spiders because they normally hide away in the daylight because they're scared of things like birds and various other predators, and so they normally just hide in the thickets, on the leaves, in the sort of web deep inside where it's difficult to actually see them. So nice that this one is out, and that would be the female because it's quite big. The male, actually, the male spider is somewhere on this left-hand side. Oh, no, it's now run to a place where I don't think you're going to get it, David, but you can try. Just on the left of, there's a column in the middle there, and just to the left of that, there is a little male spider that is sitting very, very close. It looks like a male spider. It might actually even be a young one. Now, normally in the spider world, the female is much, much larger, and the reason she's larger is because, well, she's got to have all of her young ones, and so she needs a lot more sort of size to be able to subdue prey, to get enough nutrients or enough food to be able to lay all of those eggs and to actually have little ones. So very, very cool to see. It's not every day that you actually get to see these guys out here, and I think it actually might be a little baby one now that I'm kind of looking at it. It's quite difficult to tell. Like I say, the males are often a little smaller. Is there 2 there, David? Yes, they must be the babies that are actually hatching out of the egg casing, because that does look like an egg casing. So I wonder if it's just the little ones are starting to come out now. They don't stay around for very long. They will kind of come out of that little cocoon, and then they start to move off, and they'll go and find their own place to build a web and start to grow. But that is very, very cool to see. Look at how it moves. Isn't that amazing? Now, spiders are very, very clever because when they build these webs, you can imagine that they are built to try and catch animals. And so if the spider was very, very sort of clumsy, it would then fall into its own web and get stuck. And if you look on the sides here, you can see that there is leaves and all kinds of things that are actually stuck on this web itself. And now those leaves are stuck on the sticky part of the web, and then on the inside they'll have little lines called construction lines, which are not as sticky at all. And then the spiders have these little kind of pincers that they sit on top of that web, and they're able to then move around and they don't get caught in their own web. It's really very, very cool. So spiders are an amazing creature, and it's going to be a tough few months for them because, well, there's not too many other insects around, and so for now they have to kind of conserve their energy. But when summer comes along, then you're going to see a situation where there's so many insects out here that it really is very nice for the spiders, and they catch lots and lots of different things. Now, we haven't had any luck yet with our leopard. We haven't found any more tracks or anything like that, but that's the way it goes. You've got to keep going at it, and you've got to keep looking and checking and trying to find places where you can sort of think that a leopard's going to be. So where I'm walking now is a very good place. If you have a look on the ground here, there is a path that runs. Now, when you have animals like lions and leopards, and, well, actually most animals, they will use these kind of paths in order to try and get somewhere. And the reason that they use it, it's like us. you wouldn't want to walk through thorn trees and thickets with big sharp thorns if you can go onto a pathway that is open and clear. And so for the animals, it's the same thing. They don't want to walk in the grass where the seeds are going in their eyes and they're being poked and all kinds of other things, when they can just walk on this open area and they can then follow it. So these are always good places to follow. We call them animal paths, and they most of the animals will follow these along as they go about their business during the day. So it's a good place to be checking for any signs of an animal. Fernando, yes, female spiders stay in the web all day. The reason why is because the web is a safe place. It keeps a lot of the time predators away from them. 2, it's a place where they can catch food, and they don't know when something's going to land in their web. It's not like a lion or a leopard that's going to go and hunt an animal and chase it to get it. These guys have to wait until an animal flies into their web. So if they leave the web and an animal flies in, if they don't get there and inject the venom and wrap it all up, maybe that animal will be able to struggle enough to break the web and then break free and go away. So they're always in the web so that if anything lands, they can quickly come in, inject the venom, and wait for that and subdue that animal and wrap it up and then feed off it later. So they do stay in the web all the time. In terms of getting water, well, water is gained from the web itself, and how they do that is that I was saying earlier, when it gets very cold here in the night, and then the next morning we get dew, and now dew is basically water vapor that condenses and it lands on the web, and so they can get water from their web itself, which is very clever. Right, now, so Jason, it depends on sort of how the web is built, but no, not very often does it get damaged by the wind, and the reason why is that a spider's web is very narrow. So if we have something, and maybe you can try and do this, if you're ever on a sort of car and you have a window and you just put your hand next to the window, don't put your hand out because you never know what else is coming, but if you put your hand where the air is coming in and you put your hand like this, you'll feel that the wind will go over and it won't actually move too much. But if you put your hand like this, it's very difficult to hold your hand there. Your hand gets pushed back. And so it's the same thing with a web. The web is so thin that the wind is just passing over without any real resistance. And so it just kind of moves a little bit, but it doesn't actually break. If they built something like my hand, they would have a big problem, and the wind would be in there and it would catch the wind and it would blow and probably break that web. The other thing about spiders is that their web is incredibly strong because it's able to give a little bit, so it's a bit elastic, but it's also very, very strong because of the amount of proteins that go into it, and the way that it's threaded together allows it to actually be very, very tensile, which basically means it's nice and strong. And they actually think if you had to take a spider web and increase it to about 3 centimeters in diameter, so 3 centimeters is not very big, it's about that wide, like that, and you had to make a big web in the sky, you could fly a big jumbo jet into it and it would hold that jumbo jet, which is absolutely amazing. So it's very, very strong, and that's why the wind doesn't break it. You'll find though that if a wind blows a branch and a big heavy branch falls, then you might have a problem and it will actually break. So it's an interesting kind of thing, and it's amazing how strong it actually is. Right, we're going to carry on. We'll see what other little interesting things we can find, and while we do that, let's send you back across to Sydney and see how he's getting on this afternoon.
Yeah, the updates on my side, I haven't got any sign yet, but I hope I will get something in a very short time. So we are now heading towards the Twins Dam, whereby we are hoping to have some activities taking place. The whole of the western side, there were no fresh tracks, and hopefully, maybe the direction where we're going now, we might be lucky and see something. Yeah, it is still very, very quiet, but I've got a strong feeling that this afternoon we're going to be lucky with something. Oh, no, it's very quiet. Not even browsers and grazers in this area. Not even browsers and grazers in this area is very quiet. Maybe that is the reason why we are not finding what I am looking for, the cats. Oh, something just crossed there. I didn't see what it was nicely, but there was something. Yeah. I just want to try and be quiet a little bit, just to observe and listen to the bush. Maybe we're going to be lucky with something. Oh yes, we've got a very beautiful monkey up there. So it means one of them then crossed the road earlier on. So here by the monkeys is very much interesting because the males, they don't have high ranks. The females, they've got high ranks. So the orders are given by the females. Even the discipline, the little ones, for the little ones to maintain discipline, the instruction, everything is coming from the females. So if the little ones are not acting according to the instructions, they just got to have just a little bit of a bite by the tail, and then they will follow all the instructions. So let's see if we can find something interesting again. Yeah, maybe if we can go further down, much more to the eastern side, we might be lucky. So now we can go to James, and then I'm going to carry on, see if I can find something.
I can smell in my nostrils as opposed to my eyes, because you can't actually smell in your eyes, so it's fairly redundant for me to say. I can smell in my nostrils fire. I can smell fire. And I know that they are currently burning fire breaks around this reserve. And that's a very good idea, because we're now heading towards the fire season, of course. Everything is very dry. We're about a third of the way through July. And from August onwards, we need to watch the horizon for rising plumes of smoke. And then alert people should we see them, because that's the fire season. It'll get worse and worse and worse until we get full, proper rains. There's a lot of fuel in this area this year, and so the risk of veld fires is very high. Justin, if you ever see a group of leopards, well, you might describe it as a leap of leopards. But because they are very seldom seen together, unless they are a mating pair, male and female, or a female and her babies, unless you find those two groupings, it's very unusual to find a group of leopards, and so you don't really have strictly a proper term for them. So you could call them a leap of leopards. That's a sort of fun collective noun. Otherwise, I suppose you'd call them a group, which is not very nice. But there's no biological term or accepted correct term. You know, you call a pride of lions a pride, obviously, and that's accepted in textbooks alike. Normally everything else is just a herd or a clan of hyena. But for example, a dazzle of zebra or a journey of giraffe are not terms you'll ever find in a textbook. They're just sort of fun words that we use. Now, we have come up with nothing by way of... What was that? Oh, I see. I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were still with you, everybody. Well, we're hoping that you're going to have a very good day at school. And like I say, a bit rough that you have to be there in summer. Maybe ask for early let-out today, I think, especially after your safari. All right, for the rest of you, let's hand you back to Tristan, tracking somewhere.
Well, not really tracking, James. I'm trying to see if I were to be a scrub hare, would I fit in a scrub hare home? And the answer to that question is unequivocally no, because, well, I tried to fit inside there, but as you can see, I'm a little bit big to fit inside there, and so I won't actually be able to do it. Now, it is a warm welcome to all of those that have joined us, and all of you adults, or any kids as well, actually, to the normal regular drive. Remember that you can get hold of us on #SafariLive, and we'll try and kind of answer as many questions as we can. Now, what I was saying is that this is a scrub hare little home, and the reason I know it's a scrub hare home is, one, because of the small little area that it's kind of hiding in. Two, I actually saw it move from here. But if you look inside there, I don't want to disturb it too much because I don't want to make it feel like it can't come back. But inside here, you can see all of its little droppings, and you can actually see where its front feet were, and then its rear end kind of in there, and there's the little tail shape at the back like this. And all this grass has just been moved away slightly so that it can tuck in there and be nice and insulated during the night when it's winter and kind of lie in there. It's a very, very cool little home to see. You don't often actually get to see them sort of as nicely as this, and the way it's kind of sort of moved the grass around and it's made itself a really cozy little spot. You can imagine it can be nice and sort of warm in there when it gets very cold in the early hours of the morning, as well as camouflage very well. It's a difficult thing to see, that scrub hare, if it was just sitting there. But like I say, I would not be a very good scrub hare. In fact, I'm pretty sure I would be chomped by every leopard and cheetah and lion in the immediate area. Now, Herbie, while I was sitting being ridiculous, says he's spotted something, so I want to go and have a look at what Herbie has found and go and see and investigate what there is. Now, I'm pretty sure it will be of interest. Generally, when Herbie calls us over, it's normally something very interesting to look at. So let's go and have a little quick squiz. What a beautiful afternoon, though. It's really kind of, the sun's come out, everything feels warm, complete contrast to yesterday. What have you found, Herbie? Ah, I see. Now, Herbie's eagle eyes once again have found something that probably most people would easily have overlooked. So, hidden in this little section over here is a small little snake skin. So I don't know if you can see it inside there. There it is. I'll just pick that up so that we can show all of you. Unfortunately, there's a bit of wind, so I'm going to stand so that the wind doesn't blow it away. But this is a very, very small snake that has shed its skin. It's not very big at all. As you can see, it's quite a narrow snake, and it feels very, very old. There's no sort of moisture in it at all, and it's quite sort of tangled up and dry. I'm going to try and see if I can somehow untangle it a little bit. It's probably knotted like this because with all the moisture in the air, it's gotten wet in the morning, and then it dries out and it blows around, and then it kind of wraps on itself, and then I'm just trying to, I broke it, unfortunately. That's not good, but we'll get there eventually. Sorry, David. Alright, so minus the small little tip of the tail, you can see it's a very, very small snake. I mean, it's not very big at all. I would say probably maybe about 20 centimeters and very narrow. Now, it doesn't have the head section, so it would make it almost impossible to identify which snake it is, although no, the head is broken off, unfortunately, so it'd be very difficult to know exactly what snake this is. It's like there's so many that could have been this size, maybe a little grass snake or one of the sort of stripe-bellied sand snakes. It could be one of them. They're also quite a slender snake, but very cool find. It's amazing how often you find these kind of snake skins in the most random places, but to spot this amongst the leaf litter, it's much easier when they're kind of draped over a branch, but to spot it in the leaf litter is quite something. It just shows you how amazing a Herbie's eyes are. So we're going to just drop that back in there and let it sort of decay over time. And what we're going to do now is try and head back towards sort of the driveway, because this is where the last track of this male leopard was. Caroline, moles and gophers. So gophers, no, we do not get gophers here in this particular part of the world, or in fact in South Africa. Moles, yes, there are quite a few moles in South Africa. I've personally actually never seen a mole here in the Sabi Sands, funny enough. But in areas very, very close to it, and so just on the borders of the Sabi Sands, particularly on things like golf courses and people's gardens, there are a lot of moles, and they can be a bit of a pest, as I'm sure you know. If you are aware of moles and gophers, you'll know that they can cause a lot of trouble to golf courses and various other things. So you do get them. I'm just wondering why these crowned lapwings are making so much noise. It almost looks like it's an intruder being chased in some way. They're normally not that vocal, but anyway, it seems as though something's upset them. So in the Sabi Sands, no, I've never seen one, never seen any signs of them, so never seen a little molehill, but just outside of the park, I've seen quite a few. So we get some of them out there. They're not a very common species, and obviously something you don't see that much of. You just see the little mounds coming up and kind of the evidence of them, but obviously you don't see too much of them themselves. Now, we're back onto Vuyatela's sort of access, and the reason why is we're trying to find this track for this male leopard and see where it actually went, because Rolf was following these this morning and he was saying that they were quite fresh, so I want to just check. I think Herbie's found them. Ah, no. So James has not found them, but what he has found, or what Herbie has found, sorry, is that, I don't know why I said James, I actually do know why I said James, but we'll get to that just now, but what Herbie has found is not what belongs to that snake skin we saw just now, but a very, very large sort of cousin, I would say. If you look at the size of the snake skin, or snake track, it is absolutely massive. So there's my hand, and you can see the width of this is huge, and it's got a very sort of side motion like this, which to me would probably suggest something like a mamba that has gone across here. So black mamba probably would be my guess. I mean, it obviously could be a number of other snakes that could have made this, but just the size. The only other one I would guess would maybe be a snouted cobra, just given the sort of width that it's got. And you can see this sort of S shape like this is different from something like a puff adder or a python. They tend to crawl across the road, and you can actually see where the tail dragged as it went through and crossed the road earlier today. So this would have been probably at least sort of during midday. There's only one car that has gone over it. So luckily it's not now, because if it is a black mamba, I certainly don't want to come across one that is that big. Now, I was saying earlier, I don't know why I said James, but I do know why. It's because I'm apparently supposed to send you across to James Henry, who I'm sure will be relieved to hear that I've got his name right and haven't called him Herbie when we send you across there.
No, I'm not Herbie. I look very different. I don't have anything like the skill set of Herbert. But here I am, driving along with no animals to show you, which of course is part of the problem of not being Herbert. That sounds like a good book title, Not Being Herbert. Very good. Unfortunately, we did not find any tracks or signs of Tandi or Tlalamba around where we hoped to find them, and I feel at this stage we need to address the sadness that is Scuba Steve's fate. He has obviously managed to bore the life eventually out of his erstwhile girlfriend, and she has left him. Anyway, we'll have to go back and get his opinion, I think. We've done 4 episodes of Scuba Steve and Sarah. Unfortunately, we are not going to have any more Scuba Steve and Sarah soap opera, given that Scuba Steve is on his own, and he really doesn't warrant a soap opera of his own. Yes, possibly Louise. She left because she wanted to put throw pillows around the place, and he didn't really approve of that sort of thing. That's one possibility. I wouldn't say it's a particularly strong possibility, but it's certainly one of them. So poor old Scooby must now live alone. Makes me feel quite sad for him. Anyway, we're now driving down towards an area where I hope to find where the hyena we were following on our drone shoot this morning crossed. There were 3 of them that ate something near quarantine clearings. They headed off in due southeasterly direction. We followed them for a long way, almost onto the eastern boundary. I'm just going to see if we can't see where they went, because it might give us an indication as to where or on which property they've got a den, because I'm pretty sure there must be a den somewhere, but where that is anyone's guess. And I'm 99.9% sure it's not here on Juma, because I think we would have found it by now, given how much time we spend out here in the field. We might also be very lucky with a leopard or 2. I believe that Hosanna was seen somewhere on Little Gowrie yesterday or this morning, and so that would be very, very nice if he came up north here. That's just to the south of us, so not far at all. And if we were to see our favourite little male leopard, I'm sure that the internet may explode, in fact. Oh, we have some biology, Jandre. Look, it's the grey go-away bird. And guess what it's doing? Exactly, it's going away. Go a little bit forward. Come on, Wendy. There we are. And it has... is it there? No. There are 2 more. Chandra, look. Look at that. Don't say I don't ever find anything. There are 2 grey go-away birds. Well, not in that tree. Yes, there we go. Let's find something interesting to say about them, shall we, that we haven't said before. First bird my mother learned when she did a birding course for ladies, a birding course in Johannesburg when I think, how old was I? I must have been about, probably about 12 or 13. She began a bird course, and this is the first bird she learned. And she had to go out into the garden and decide, when she was practicing for each week, they had to go to this bird course, and she had to practice things during the week. First thing she had to do was decide whether it was the same size as a sparrow, a chicken, or an eagle. And we decided the grey go-away bird was in fact the size of a chicken, which was very important. I think it is round about the size of a small chicken. And so that was the first step, and she passed her first test, which was excellent. I wouldn't describe my dear mother as the most proficient birder in the world, but I don't think she's watching now. I hope she isn't. Sydney has more things that my mother would like to identify.
This is one of the very beautiful birds, the Batalia. You can see there we've got an adult together with a juvenile. So they're just basking the sun, and the sun helps them because it does also chase quite a lot of parasites. So they're not just doing it for fun. Yeah, they are not just basking the sun just for fun, because this is one of the ways these birds are using in order to chase away the parasites. So they've got a very interesting diet. These birds, they also scavenge some of the carcasses killed by the big predators, and they also hunt themselves. They even predate some of the small birds, such as the doves. So you can see it's quite a very big bird, and they're very much silent. Sometimes they make noise, but mostly they are very much silent. Look, that is a very beautiful look. Look at that red face. That is beautiful. So the juvenile looks completely different from the adults, as if it's two completely different species. And very much camouflage to that tree. So if you don't look very carefully, it's not easy to see them. So these birds are very much common in the area. So I've got a question now. Yeah, we've got some of the birds like the vultures that can survive quite a lot of time. So this one, it is still very young. It cannot survive that very long. But some birds, such as the vultures, they can survive very much longer. We do have those kind of vultures here. The white-back vulture is one of those vultures that can survive a lot of years. Oh, listen to that noise. You can hear that they are busy communicating. So most of birds by this time of the year, they are not in the reserve because, you know, they are still out there. This is the dry season, so some of these birds are on migration. So we are only left behind with a lot of common residents. So these are some of those birds that makes this area very special. Very beautiful to observe them flying, Yeah, there is a question about the size from Benik. I did manage to get that question. So these birds, they are not that very much big. If you can just check, their territories can just go up to 250 miles square, which is 650 kilometers square. So, but in terms of the weight, they don't weigh that much. I'm not very sure in terms of the kilograms. So you can see that one, the one with the red, the adults, is looking very big because the feathers, they are raised a little bit. So the juvenile, you can see that the feathers are closed. So now we are going to Tristan, who's got something very interesting to show us.
Well, we do. We've finally found the tracks that we've been looking for. So we've been doing circles all over the place trying to find exactly where they went. And everyone this morning kind of believed, because of the audio that they were getting, that he had gone into sort of more west and following sort of Shidulu. But it actually turns out eventually, after kind of turning back, that he's gone east and he's kind of cut a different direction altogether. And you can see here is his track here. So there's the sort of back of the pad over there, and there is his toes in front. So, and this is a bit more clear actually, this one here. So that's the back foot over there, and then the front foot over there, which means he was moving quite quickly. But it looks like Tingana's track to me, and it looks like he was kind of going in an easterly direction. We're going to follow them and try and see if we can find where he's gone. These tracks are definitely from this morning, and when we were doing our sort of drone testing this morning, we had alarm calls coming from this area, and so I'm pretty sure he was here at about sort of maybe 5:20, 5:30, somewhere in that area. And we know Tingana can walk quite a long way, but it might be worth just following, and maybe we get lucky and he's kind of lay up for the day. It has been a much warmer day than yesterday, but definitely these are the fresher tracks going in this sort of direction. And I wonder if he hasn't cut off into this drainage line that's just in front of us here and has gone and lay there. So after having a drink, he might have just gone into the sort of drainage line and had a bit of a rest. But at least we are on the right kind of tracks now. We saw where he followed sort of Shidulu all the way up to a junction, and then they just kind of split off like that, and he came this way and Shidulu went west. And so at least we have the right tracks now. It's hopefully going to mean that we can find him. The problem with, if it is Tingana, I mean, he's a little bit tough on foot. He doesn't particularly like being seen on foot, and he normally kind of just runs away from you. But if we can find him, at least that's the start, and we can then maybe try get Sydney or James coming in and taking over from us. So we'll try and kind of actively sort of track this fella and see where he goes. It's been a very long time since I've seen a leopard on foot, and in fact I actually don't think, I'm trying to remember now, but I don't think that I have had a leopard on bushwalk. No, I have. I've had Shungile before, and I think I've had Hosanna once before. But it's been a very long time since I've had a leopard on bushwalk. In fact, I think probably over a year, which is not good for my soul and not good for my general health. And therefore, I need to feed the addiction and try and kind of see if we can find him this afternoon. It's not the best sort of leopard to be trying this with, but we'll try anyway and see what we get. You never know. Maybe we find him and he's on a kill and he'll just sit still for us for a change. But I highly doubt it. If we do see him, all we're going to see is a little tail disappearing into the thickets. Now, the reason why I say I think it's Tingana is because the tracks, the way that they went, sort of indicate that it's him. Yesterday he was seen on Little Gowrie, and he was kind of on a warthog kill yesterday in Little Gowrie. The tracks that we found for this particular male actually come from sort of Little Gowrie, straight up Weaver's Nest, all the way up. They get to about Philemon's Dip, and then they cut into a westerly direction and then head straight north up Zoe's, and then cross over and then come towards sort of Gallagher's. So for me, they must be Tingana. Hukamuri doesn't normally walk from that kind of direction. He normally comes from the west eastwards and then kind of carries on. So we're going to see where these tracks take us. Hopefully they will take us to a little spotty bum in the bush, and while we kind of look for that, let's go across to James, who hopefully doesn't have a spotty bum where he is.
I do not have a spotty bum as far as I'm aware of. I'm unable to see my bum, of course, so I might have a spotty bum, but I don't think I do. Anyway, we have come to the fire break, as I suggested. There have been burning fire breaks here, and fire breaks are wonderful because they attract birds. They attract birds because fires generally throw up what few insects are remaining, and that is why we have got a lilac-breasted roller. We've got a derv as well. There are a couple of starlings floating about here. It's a hornbill. Definitely we'll be looking for insects that have been unearthed by the fire. So fire break, for those of you who don't know, is a band of burned area around a property, so that should a piece of a property begin to burn, so does that make sense? Yes, should a piece of property begin to burn, you can start a backburn. And a backburn is a fire that you would burn towards the actual fire, and in so doing put it out. So let's pretend, as always is the case here, that the wind blows from the southeast. If a fire began somewhere on Djuma, you'd go to the northwest corner of Djuma and burn slowly back towards it, and in so doing you would hopefully put the fire out, as long as the wind wasn't too strong and the fire didn't jump over the break that you'd made. So that's what was going on here. I love the smell because it reminds me of, well, August really. August is the time when a lot of people burn their wilderness areas or their communal grazing to inspire some green growth during the summer. So it always reminds me slightly of a returning summer, although it's a bit early for that now. Minamu, these vehicles are taken care of by a genius in the workshop at Djuma called Opa, which means grandfather. He's about, what, 33, 34? I'm not sure why he's called Opa, which means grandfather, as I said. He is a genius because there are very few people in the world who could keep these rattle traps going, and I believe him to be possibly one of 2 or 3 in the known universe able to coax life out of these aging cars. Now, they're called Wendy, Jigger and Rusty for various reasons. I've forgotten why Wendy, who I'm driving today, is called Wendy. Jigger was called Jigger by Graham, I think. Graham is our fearless leader, chief executive, founder and utter madman. He is the fellow who owned Jigger at one stage. I'm not sure why he named her Jigger. Rusty was named Rusty because when she arrived from the Cape, like most things, she was full of rust, so that's why she was called Rusty. I forget why Wendy was called Wendy though. She's long since forgotten as well. Apparently Jigger has the name Jigger because she drives skew. Gujiga in Zulu is the word to turn, so I'm assuming that's possibly where it comes from. Alrighty, we are now arriving on Chitwa Chitwa. Oh, Graham apparently wanted to buy a car called Wendy and couldn't, and so he bought this one and called it Wendy instead. Madman, I told you. You know, more evidence than that you do not need. Complete madman. Oh, let's have a look at that long-tailed shrike. Or magpie shrike. Chandra is just wrestling with his camera. The camera is particularly difficult to wrestle with on Wendy because it is twice the mass that it's supposed to be, because it has the very fancy thermal TK1 on, which makes it a bit heavy. Fernando, yes, there are plenty of birds that use their colours for camouflage, mostly those that live on the ground, for example the francolins that we saw very much earlier, the owls, they certainly are very camouflaged. What else would be camouflaged? Obviously. Guinea fowl are relatively well camouflaged in the grass. But it's mostly the ground-dwelling birds that are particularly well camouflaged. And if I think of the babies of, for example, the blacksmith lapwing or any of the lapwing species, they are almost invisible when they're tiny babies. So yes, lots of birds use camouflage. It seems to be the worse they can fly, or the closer to the ground they live, the more camouflaged they're likely to be. I suppose the brown colours on owls might be considered not so much camouflage, but sort of night plumage. There's no real point in them being in colour if they can't see anything at night, and of course they are probably see far worse colour than many of the diurnal birds because they sacrifice the colour vision to be able to see well at night. Chandra is nodding his head in approval with that answer. I just put a thorn in my poor little finger. Continue. Very owie. Maybe we will be lucky with some elephants. No, thank you, Louise. I do not need a plaster. My father would never let me put a plaster on. My injuries, my severe injuries as a child, said they needed air, rather. Isn't it funny how children think that a plaster can help just about any kind of injury? No, Louise, we didn't have Spider-Man plasters in my day. In my day, I don't think the technology to print on plasters existed, but for the very few who had Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse on their plasters. I was very jealous of them, but I would have very happily done with a flesh-coloured Band-Aid. I wasn't even allowed that. My mother used to give them to me, but my father refused. No, you must let it air. Money, so, and it's going to get infectious. You mean infectious? Yes. No, it cannot become infectious. It might become infected. That's what I mean. Need a plaster. It's hard, won't everyone? Yes, that is exactly how I spoke as a child. It was a bit more, I probably had a slightly more poncy and high-pitched accent. I want a plaster, Daddy, please. I'd like a plaster. Louise, I suppose my ponciness has reduced slightly as I've got older. So yes, I guess it would be possible for me to be even poncier than I am now. Right, Chandra, let us have a look at that darter before it darts into the water and tries to catch a fish. I may even try my hand at some illegal photography while we sit here. Of course, I've become a lot more poncy since watching that show about the royal family. You know that show, Chandra? I'm sure it is deeply interesting too. Well, yes, for the crown. And they all speak like this a little bit. It's very important to speak like this if you want to be taken seriously as a royal. Alas, I am not a royal at all. I am common. Common as you like, Chandra. Cannot be considered anything other than bog standard. Are you also bog standard, Chandra, or do you have royal blood coursing through your veins? Dutch as they may be. Royal blood, Chandra? No? Not quite. Oh, there. Sorry about that. Oh, no. Louise, there's no Henry family crest. We come from a very small clan of Scottish people, the MacNaughtons, who owned a piece of land roughly the size of Chitwood Dam. History doesn't relate whether the laird of the clan was anyone to write home about, or if, like most of the lairds, he lived in a small hovel and managed his lands in a sort of like a tribal chieftain, if you like. I don't know if they ever amounted to anything, really. I don't know if they ever conquered anyone, or perhaps provided some sort of service to the crown, if you know what I mean. Which may, of course, mean that I could have royal blood. But I don't think so. Apparently Louise Pavid has got a crest on both sides of her family. Ooh, hang on a second, we're moving. Chandra, there's a report of a leopard at Baboon Pan, which is probably Hosanna. I'm just about there. I'll make my way there as well. Let's go and see who it is. We're just going to have a quick look and see if that isn't Hosanna. Apparently there's a leopard at Baboon Pan. I'm just going to nip down there and see if we can get a view. Sydney, if you are close to Twin Dams, just head there. By all means, go there in front of me. Because it's so exciting, it might be worth us both going. I'm not sure where he is. He was on Leadwood Road, which is quite close to Baboon Pan. Baboon Pan is obviously not on Djuma, it's just south at Little Gowrie. But it is, of course, close to our boundary. It's on our boundary. Alright, Sydney is going on his way there, so let's find out from him how close he is.
Yeah, let's see if... Yeah, I am now heading to Baboon's Pan, whereby they have just spotted a leopard, and see if maybe we can be lucky and see it there. So the updates, I just got them now. Chances are very high that we might see the leopard today. So I'm just quickly heading there and see if we can have a sighting. Yeah, I can see here they were doing some fire. They were doing some fire breaks here earlier. So you can see that the area is bent a little bit. So this was a controlled burn. I know a lot of people, when it comes to the fire burning the bush, they get very concerned, because a lot of us don't realize that the vegetation such as this, it does needs fires in order to stimulate growth. So if you can check here, the grasses, the leaves for the grasses is attached to the stem, and they don't drop off during the dry season. So, which means the fires must have to come so that they can burn the old moribund, the old plant material, in order to stimulate the new growth. And also, fires, they help some of the tree species when it comes to the seed germination. Some of the tree species in southern Africa, they cannot germinate the seeds without fires. Like, for instance, the proteas. So these fires can also help when it comes to the control of ticks. So these animals, yes, the birds, they do feed on these ticks, but when it's too much, it's very important to have the fires so that they can come and control such ticks. Because some of the birds, they are not local residents. They can go, and when they're not here, then there will be just ticks a lot in the area. So now, let me head down to Baboon's Pan and see if we can find the leopard that has been spotted not long time ago. So we are heading to Baboon's Pan now. Oh, my microphone is off. Yeah, you can see a lot of bird species there around here to try and see if there is still insects here. So they're just checking, you know, by this time of the year. Okay, let's go and see this leopard. Yeah, let's go and see this leopard. Things are happening down there. So let's now go to Tristan, and he's got something on his side while I'm going to the leopard.
Now, we were busy trying to track, well, whichever leopard this is that is walking through here, whether it be Tingano or Hukamuri, one of our big male leopards, and we came across his track and we were kind of looking at it. But what was more interesting than the track itself is that there is somewhere over here, and you can see that there's little striations in the ground. Now, this is a drag mark. It's not a drag mark for a leopard, though, because the leopard track, which is where over here, was just kind of going straight across and didn't actually sort of drag this prey, and also this prey item is very, very small. So we sat and we sort of looked and we tried to follow the drag mark along, and our clue came over here as to what animal was actually dragging a kill. So I'm going to just put a little square around it. There is a little footprint over there that is very, very, very small. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 toes and a little pad at the back. And so this is a drag mark from a genet. A genet has killed something, I think possibly maybe a bird or maybe a little baby scrub hare or something like that, and it has then dragged it along and dragged it down into the sort of drainage line below. We had a little look around trying to see if we could find any signs of the carcass, but we can't. I think it maybe sort of took it up somewhere, ate it, and then left and went away. But it's not very often that you get to see a drag mark from a little carnivore like this. It's really very, very cool. Now, while I think about doing sort of tracking work on spotty cats, James has had all the luck this afternoon, and he's managed to find one.
Well, we didn't find her. Somebody driving along the road found her. It's not Hosana. It is Tandi, as far as we can tell. And she seems to be stalking some impala. So we'll just give her a little bit of space to move. It's definitely Tandi. You can see her torn ears. Beautiful shot there of her in the grass. We also, if you can believe it, saw a badger on our way here. I'm not sure if I heard Sydney respond to the sighting before I did, so we may just let him come in. If he's close by, I'm going to hand Tandi over to Sydney because he hasn't spent any time with these cats. She goes. She's just there. I'm going to wait here because I don't want her to be disturbed by us. Now she's got into the shade. That's very good camouflage for her to have. Just flicking her tail to show the birds that she means them no harm. Yeah, that's what Jandre said as well, Louise. She looks like she's chuffing, like maybe she's calling. Yeah, she is definitely doing something with her mouth. Maybe Tlalamba. It might not be Tandi. I think it's Tandi though. I think the ears are sufficiently scratched up. Alright, I'm going to hand the sighting over to Sydney. Sydney, come in off-road, yeah? Are you copying me? I can't see your hands, so you're going to need to talk on the radio. Alrighty, let's go across to Tristan, and when you're next here, Sydney will be here with the leopard.
Well, hopefully James will manage to get Sydney in perfectly fine. I'm sure he will. I'm sure Sydney will be very happy to finally meet. Well, he's met Tandi, actually. He's had Tandi before. He had Tandi on Sunday morning, so that will be quite nice for him, and hopefully he'll have a really good sighting of her, particularly if she's stalking. It's always quite fun following Tandi around. It can be difficult, but fun. Right, well, we're still carrying on. We're still kind of walking. We're just trying to sort of decode what's going on here, because this leopard has done a massive turn on itself. So it's gone down and then turned around and come straight kind of back west again, and is now kind of moving slowly through these sort of thickets. I have a funny feeling that this leopard maybe was moving and was kind of going for water, and it might have then been that Shadulu maybe called, and he's then turned and gone straight to go and investigate which female is around. Now, it would be very, very interesting to me that if this is Tingana, to go and sort of follow and find Shadulu, because Shadulu, as far as I know, has not come across Tingana yet. Obviously, it's possible that they have during the course of the night, but we don't know for sure that those two have met up, and it will be very interesting to see if she comes into an estrous cycle, if she's not pregnant. That might pull Tingana even further to the sort of west, and we might have a situation where then Hukumuri and Tingana might have conflict again, and also Shadulu. Then it will be interesting to see if she drags her territory a little bit more further east to try and fit in with Tingana if they mate. So it's going to be an interesting kind of time if Tingana was indeed the one that is walking here, and if he did indeed catch up with Shadulu. Now, seems like Shadulu, I looked at the sort of footage from this morning, seems like Shadulu's doing much, much better after her sort of little eye injury that she had. It seems as though that wasn't too bad an injury. I kind of looked at the photos at first and it didn't look too bad, just she had a bit of a swollen eye. And I was thinking about it sort of later, is that swollen eye could very well have come not from sort of anything to do with Hukumuri or any other male leopards or anything like that. It could very well have come from a antelope. She might have been hunting and she got kicked in the face and a little hoof went into the eye. She might have had a situation where she tried to go after a snake maybe, and a snake sort of tried to go into her eye. There's all kinds of possibilities, but the lack of a cut there for me suggests that it was a sort of incident that took place in a sort of hunt rather than a fight. When leopards fight, generally there'll be a nick on the ears, the face, something around those areas will cause a little bit of a problem. But, you know, when there's a situation where you just get a bit of swelling like that, for me it's more like a kick to the face than anything else. Now, we've kind of walked through a massive sort of boneyard, which was from a buffalo. This is the buffalo, very same buffalo that Taylor recovered the skull a few weeks ago, the one that was sitting on the sign that everybody sat around and kind of spoke about, a very large buffalo. And so this is just the remainder of the skeleton, and you can see it's very unusual to have a skeleton like this for a buffalo in the Sabi Sands area, because generally when you have buffalo kills in the Sabi Sands, you'll have a situation where the bones get spread everywhere by hyenas. As hyenas come in and feed, or when the lions are finished, hyenas will come in, they'll take legs, they'll take bits all over the place and carry them off. This died during the drought, and so there was no sort of reason for the hyenas to come to this particular animal, and so it rotted like this, and that's skeleton is still very close together. There's very few places that you will see sort of bone structures like this in the Sabi Sands if it was sort of, you know, outside of a drought period. So it's interesting to see the kind of difference, and you can see there's a number of animals that kind of walk through here and sniff about, lots of hyena tracks, and I'm sure every time it rains the hyenas come in and have a little look and see what's going on and a bit of a sniff. And you can actually, funny enough, see right here evidence of the hyenas being here fairly recent, well, not recently, but they were here a few sort of times. This is some of the dung from a hyena, so once they've fed on the sort of skeleton, then they'll sort of defecate, and so this white dung over here is from them. It is quite dry, so I would imagine that it's a little bit older than I first thought. Good. Anyway, we'll carry on. Let's keep going. There's a few birds that are chirping in front here. Seems like a few helmet shrikes that are around. Sometimes it's good to just kind of listen out to birds, because birds can give you a good indication of if anything is around. So while we do that, let's send you back across to James. I think he's still with the beautiful Tundi.
I think we are definitely looking at Tundi. She's on the hunt now. Sydney is in the sighting, so he will take over as soon as another vehicle comes in, or if he gets a better view of her. We're not going to move from here because she is hunting at the moment. And there are some impala. I think I can see them. I think I can see them just down below there. Yes, I can. You see them beyond there. Just to the right of the, you see that green bush there, Jean-Louis? Yeah, if you zoom through that, just to the left, sorry, of that green bush, you'll see the impala. Can you see? There you go, just a little flicker of a tail. The leopard is now, she's gone flat next to that little kind of thorny bush, yeah, right there, in that shadow. Well spotted. No, to the right of that. Have you got her? Ah, well spotted. Fantastic. See what she does there. Alrighty, that's a game drive vehicle, obviously. And we'll see if Sydney can get in there and get a better view. Alrighty, while Sydney gets a better view, there he is, he's going to pull into the sighting. Bushwalk has got an L.
We do indeed. So I was saying just now that the birds are going crazy and one must always listen to the birds, and so we sat here for a little bit and out popped a owl. Now I can't see very nicely which owl species it is. It looks like either a barred or a pearl spotted, but it's a little bit obscured from my point of view, so you'll have to let me know which one it is. But you can see that white-crested helmet shrikes are not happy, so they alarm calling, they dive bombing, and that's because this owl is a predatory bird of other birds, and so it's one that they try and chase away and try and kind of mob and get rid of as quick as possible. So you'll see every now and then one of the shrikes will sort of fly in and try and kind of peck at the owl and try and kind of chase it off. Now I'm thinking that it might be a barred owl, just given that it looks like it's a little on the bigger side, but I might be wrong. I'm going to try and have a little look on Dave's screen. No, I think it's pearl spotted now that I can see it's a little bit closer. So pearl spotted owlet, which is very, very cool. You don't often see them during the day. I suppose lately we have, though, and Byron and I were actually discussing this a few days ago, is that the owls here at Djuma, it seems as though it's much easier to find owls here than it is in some other parts of the Sabi Sands even. It's amazing to kind of see that we get to see them so regularly, particularly the barred and the sort of pearl spotted. Now, I just want to have one more look. No, it is a barred owlet, sorry. So like you can see there, it's got those little triangles on the chest and on the sort of tummy area. So barred owlet has those little triangles, whereas a pearl spotted will have more streaking on the chest sort of area. It is very, very cute. I believe a lot of you are saying that it's a very cute little bird. It is very cute, but it's also a very irate owl at the moment because it's being mobbed and bombarded by some unwanted cousins in the form of the shrike. So that it'll hopefully just sit there and kind of tuck its head down, and the shrikes will eventually lose interest and move away, and the owl will be left on its own. Now that owl will kind of sit in that position probably now until the sun sets, and as the sun sets is when we'll find these barred owlets getting a lot more sort of active and trying to move around quite a bit. But isn't that cool? Very cool, and to get that on Bushwalk in terms of a view like that is absolutely epic. So David's done some very good work there to be able to get himself in a spot where he's got a nice clear view of that little owl. Even in a vehicle, we'd be pretty happy with the close-up of an owl like that. So very, very cool to see. Now, I'm probably going to try and sort of sneak off at some point because we don't actually want to disturb it any further. It's been disturbed quite a bit already by the marauding shrikes who are still actually sitting and going at it. There's one that's right actually above us at the moment, and it's just kind of making a bit of noise at the top of the tree there. So Zora, the owl is from sort of the tail to the top of the head, about sort of 15, 16 centimeters. I think they get it to about 18 at fully grown, as far as I remember. So very, very small. They are not big owls at all, hence the owlet kind of name. And they target mostly small birds. So you'll find them going after things like little waxbills and testiculars, and I suppose the helmet shrikes, maybe young birds from there. Also little mice, lizards, anything that's small enough that they can overpower. So they are not very big birds at all, and I'll double check just now on my app and try and see exactly if I was right in terms of size, but I think it was sort of 18 centimeters. I might be wrong, it might be a bit more than that. Might go as much as 20 for the barred owlet, but we'll have a little look just now. But they are not very big birds at all. They are a lot sort of puffier than they are tall. They almost kind of sort of complete circle. When it's cold, you see them kind of puff out their feathers. They can appear quite sort of roundish, but very small little birds. Very, very, very pretty though. Right. Well, we're going to leave our owl in peace. The helmet shrikes have flown off, and so this owl can now get a last of its little nap this afternoon. While we do that, let's send you across to Sydney, who's got Tundi, and seems as though she's stalking.
Yeah, I've got a very beautiful sighting. I've got Tandy with me. As you can see, she is lying just in between the grasses. Ahead of Tandy, there is some impalas very stationary feeding. It seems like Tandy is interested on one of those prey down there. So we're just going to wait a little bit and see the developments. But it seems like something is going to happen. As earlier on, we saw her just moving slowly with the head pulling down, showing that she is interested to do something on one of them. You can see that the ears are moving every time, and these cats can be very much camouflaged. So we saw her earlier on. She was moving slowly and with their front legs bent, and she was so very careful. So that's why I'm saying she is interested on one of them, and none of those impalas have realized that there is Tandy in the area. They all don't know about her presence here. Yeah, it's just that you know, hunting, it takes time, so I've got to be very patient. Yeah, and that is my hope too. So I'm hoping to see a kill this afternoon. No, she's very, very silent, and her whole focus is on those impalas. So we got to be very patient. And some of those impalas, I can see that they are feeding, heading towards this direction. Some of them, they're just scattering. Yeah, there is a question about the distance between Tandy and the impalas. I didn't get the name, but the distance I can say is approximately 120, 150 meters. It's not that very far away. Anything can happen. And you can see that the spots on Tandy is helping her to camouflage her because she's right under the shade. She's now looking at us. So you can see the impalas now, some of them are starting to feed, facing towards the northern side. But I can see her main focus, it is still there. My favorite predator is a lion. So lions are very much interesting. Yeah, although leopards are also, but lions, that is my favorite animal, It's my favorite predator. Oh, she's hiding completely, So now I'm going to take you to James, who is going to show you some of the interesting birds on his side. I will be here, I will be very patient, and maybe something is going to come out.
We have got here a scavenger, also hoping that Tandy will be successful there. It is, of course, the batelier. That is a junior batelier, juvenile. We know that, of course, because it's brown, not black and red and gorgeous. You've had enough of it, have you, Chandra? Okay, good. Let's go back to the bird. And you know it's a batelier immediately, just by the way its wings extend beyond its tail. I mean, it's quite a stocky, bulky eagle, and so that's also obvious, or makes it relatively obvious, but it's those very long wings that stretch beyond the shortened tail that are the giveaway. This chap has been around for a while, and I think you were looking at his parents a little bit earlier with Sydney. Certainly when I spotted Sydney across from one of the blocks, he was sitting with, he was there with one of his parents, this chap was. Okay, good. That's good news. So he's still at home, as it were. I'm sure his parents can't wait for him to leave. Inamu, I think with a batelier, if I'm not mistaken, what happens is the male does a little bit of incubating, but much less than the female. That's certainly the case with the Wahlberg's eagle. Let me just have a look. I don't wish to tell you a lie. You know, that would be dreadful of me if I was to tell you a lie. Don't you think, Jean-Ray? Wouldn't be right. It would be dreadful were I to express something that was a lie. Right, breeding monogamous pair. Yes, we know that. Nest built. Nest is built mainly by the male. That's interesting. In around about 6 weeks. Laying, eggies, incubation. Both sexes equally during the day. There we go. So during the 55-day incubation period, both sexes will incubate equally during the day. Very progressive society are the societies of the batelier, but for when it comes to building, then they are, well, positively backward. I'm just reading here, nests frequently reused for 3 to 5 years. Well, Lauren, I'll tell you what, while I've got it open, I'll try and find out for you how long it stays with its parents. It achieves full adulthood at about 7 years. But I have definitely seen immature batelier in sort of courtship behavior. Let me see here. First flight, 95 to 125 days. That really is quite something. 2 months after it's born, it can fly. After 7 weeks, parental attendance drops to 24%. Both sexes contribute equally to brooding and feeding the chick. Blah blah, partly swallows snakes, vomits them up, blah blah. 6 weeks, self-feeds and crouches. 9 weeks, gives threat display. Go! And crest for wings raised. Fledgling returns to nest for 3 months after first flight and fed by adults for up to 4 months after first leaving the nest. So although this bird is most certainly not being fed by his parents anymore, I would have guessed that he was probably into his, I don't know how old he is actually, it's very difficult to tell. Tail's quite short. I'm going to say 3rd or 4th year. You will find that he's not territorial yet, and that means he will stay within the territory of his parents. Could be her parents, not so sure. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Well, Magic Dragon Wizard, you want a detailed answer to your question? I shall give you one. You want to know if it eats other birds? I'm going to say, well, if it could, it would, but I don't think it eats a lot of them. At least 57 mammalian food species on record. Scavengers, wide variety of prey, including birds, so it will eat birds if they are dead, but I don't know if it actually catches any. Yeah, most likely scrap. No, here we go, birds. Kruger National Park, mammals, 55% of food items, birds, 24%. So yes, it will kill birds. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Glossy starlings, rollers, and hornbills are the most obvious ones. All right, Tundi appears perhaps to be not quite as hungry as her eyes are.
You can see now Tundi decided to avoid the impalas. She is now heading towards the southern direction. She is not interested anymore. Maybe Tundi is not hungry. Maybe she just wanted to prove that she can hunt and catch something. Look, she's still looking at those impalas, but she lost interest because now she's extending the distance. She's going very far now. So you can see she's going very far, but we're still going to follow her and see if maybe she's going to decide. Maybe she's just thinking about to approach the impalas from a different angle. Because now the direction she's heading, she's still looking at those impalas. You can see even the tail is waving, showing a little bit of interest on them. You see, she's walking and stopping and checking. Maybe she wants to approach those impalas from a different angle. So let me try now and pull forward and see if maybe she's still going to carry on going to the impalas from the other side. So I don't want to lose her. I can see now it's disappearing a little bit. So it was not a bad sighting. It was beautiful, although she attempted to go for the impalas and then decided otherwise. No, I've lost her a little bit from his side.
Well, good luck, Sydney. Hopefully you find her. And I was just admiring this rather large ball of elephant dung. It is a particularly big specimen of elephant dung. And actually, as we've been walking along, I've been kind of trying to look around and see what sort of life there is in terms of insects and those kind of things. And elephant dung is one of the first places one should check for any signs of life. If there's no life on elephant dung, well, then you can bet that things are pretty quiet out here. And in fact, I've tried to break open multiple different balls, and every single one that I've broken open is pretty much lifeless. There are one or two little insects. In fact, you can see a little larvae that's just disappeared from view. I'm going to try and see if I can dig it out for you. Let's have a, well, not dig it out, but just expose it slightly. It went in here somewhere. Where did it go? Now I'm looking for it. It was a little white grub that was inside here. So I wanted to just quickly see if it's still there now, because I wanted to try and identify what it actually is, because it would be interesting to me, given that, there it is. You see it there? It's just disappearing. Sorry, Dave. I'm going to try and get it to maybe just expose it a little bit more. There it is. You see it, Dave? There it goes. So it's a small little, almost worm-like structure. I wonder if it is a worm. Very, very interesting. It might be a little nematoid. I'm not sure. But you can see, look, there it is. So it's just on the edge of the stick, and it's kind of wobbling around all over the place. And so this is why one should wash one's hands when handling all kinds of different feces. And so that looks just like a little worm. It actually doesn't look grub-like at all. So I think that is a worm that's kind of been part of its digestive tract that is just going to climb back inside there, and I'll cover it up so that it's safe. The other interesting thing that you find inside here, now, for us as humans, the thought of this actually just sends chills down my spine, and probably would to all of you. If you look at all of this, it's mostly just sort of grassy material. There's a few little branches in there, but there's one thing inside here that I would be very hesitant to have coming out your rear end. And if you have a look at it, there it is right there, which is a rather large thorn from a buffalo thorn. It's a straight thorn as well, which can't be very pleasant. The actual hooked thorn from this buffalo thorn is over here. So there's the little hook thorn. So it's eaten a buffalo thorn at some point. And like I say, that coming out cannot be comfortable at all if it's on the edges. Thankfully, these are right and deep in the middle. But if that would be towards the edge, I would imagine it would have been a rather uncomfortable experience for this elephant to be able to have passed this particular ball. But it's interesting to me that these actually survive, because normally with ellies, when they eat the things that have got a lot of thorns in them, they'll actually sort of crunch down, and it normally pulverizes the thorns and makes them kind of quite soft. But this particular one definitely is not soft in any way, and that must have, like I say, not been very pleasant to pass through the digestive system. Now, Louise, you say this is the scariest elephant dung you've ever seen. Well, what is it, because of the worm or because of the thorns that had to be passed through its digestive system? Both are pretty creepy, if you ask me, and I wouldn't want both. Yeah, a combination of both of them, exactly. I wouldn't want either of those inside my sort of gut system. Now, I've got to try and find the cap for this, because this little worm otherwise is not going to do very well. So I've got to just try and kind of place it back together. There we go. No one will ever know the difference. And let's put little wormy back so he can carry on his wormy way, and then we'll just kind of wash our hands when we get back a little bit later. But that was very cool. It just goes to show sometimes you need to just pick up and explore and kind of have a little look at and have a few sort of takes of what's going on. Now, Louise says she's going to be buying Wormox for me. Wormox is the name, isn't it, Louise? And actually, this is quite a funny conversation on the back of what Louise and who was talking to us, Louise? We were talking to somebody else about worms and deworming oneself when going into these crazy sort of bush environments, and making sure that you kind of take care and don't actually have I think Jenna and Seb, or Jenna and Ralph maybe, we were having this conversation with yesterday or the day before about worms. So definitely we'll try and kind of wash our hands and make sure we don't have any worms entering the digestive system, because that won't be very fun at all. No one wants a little Timmy the tapeworm sitting inside of them, so we'll try and avoid that at all costs. Good. On that note, let's carry on. On that note, let's carry on. We're going and see what we can find. We're still trying to see if we can find any more signs of this leopard. And we lost the track kind of going back in a westerly direction into this block between the driveway, sandy patch, and Gallagher shortcut. And Rexon says to us that he heard him calling from inside here. So what we're going to try and do is just have a little look around. We're just kind of scouting every path. Herbie's on sort of one path, I'm on another. And we're just looking for any sort of tracks that can indicate to us that maybe, just maybe, this leopard is somewhere in this general vicinity. I'm hoping that that's the case. Maybe we'll even get lucky and we'll hear him calling. It's now that time of the day. The sun's just starting to dip towards the horizon, and so we should get a sort of perfect time for him to be calling and sort of making a bit of noise. That's the idea anyway. Right, now sounds like Sydney has found some luck and sort of gathered a Tundi, and they are still on their journey into the night.
Yeah, Tundi is right ahead of me, and she's still very much settled, not knowing what to do. As earlier on, she wanted to chase the impalas and decided to give up, and now she's back again. There she's moving, and the direction she's moving is not very far away from where these impalas are feeding, heading to. So the chances of Tundi to come across the impalas she avoided earlier on the other side are very high, so they might meet up again. Look at how those beautiful roseate spots are shining, eh? You can see that she's heading towards the direction where those impalas are going. So I'm still going to follow her and see what she's going to meet and what she's going to do. Because I can see she's walking, but her concentration, the ears and the tail is concentrating too much. It's showing that she's excited about something. So there she is again, observing the impalas, probably because that where she's checking now is where the impalas are heading to. Maybe she just avoided them earlier on, wanting to approach from a different angle. So I'm just going to pull further again forward just to see if we can have a better visual. But I can promise you, Thandi is on a mission here. She is on a mission. So let me just pull much closer a little bit. Yeah, let me just try to have a better visual. Oh, she's not going anywhere. She's very seated there, but waiting, seated as if she's waiting for something. Oh, there she is moving. So she's moving very slowly. So you can see that now she's moving towards where those impalas are feeding, heading to. She's just going zigzag. So it's very difficult at this stage to tell which direction she's going, because she's going just zigzag. Yeah, now we can go to James. He's got a beautiful fish eagle on his side.
We do. It's a beautiful fish eagle as opposed to an ugly fish eagle. And it is bathing in the glory of the late afternoon light here. We've come back to Chitwa Chitwa, which of course is very pleasant, and there's a lot of hippopotamus action going on. Chandra, did you have to do that? Did you have to expose my illegal behavior? I was getting a picture of the fish eagle. Don't worry, I got one, everyone. I know that you'll be very upset if I didn't. Chandra likes the scene, he says, because it's busy. I agree with him. I think it's, which has never happened before. But agreeing with him, I mean, I think it's a very pleasant scene of a sort of busy afternoon here at the waterhole in the winter. Temperature dropping slightly as the sun heads towards the horizon. And you can see it hasn't been a particularly hot day. And that's why the hippos are out, or certainly one of the reasons the hippos are out. They can be out when it isn't very hot. There we go. Let's go a bit closer now. We didn't want to frighten the fish eagly. So we can go a little closer and enjoy what's going on over there, all the busy scenes at the waterhole. Very pleased we have Thandi, totally confused as to how she got to where she is. There's no tracks of her. Maybe she flew. A friend of mine once said to me, you know, a leopard can fly. Well, I didn't believe him at the time, but perhaps they can. Oh, before we get into the shadow, no, he's behind a tree. A vast crocodilian over there. Marvellous. Big fellow. Don't know where his lady is, but I can show you where his child is. Jondri, can you see that small lizard over there? Yep, that's it. Middle of frame. There's the baby crocodilo. Now that baby crocodilo will want nothing to do with his daddy or his mummy, whoever that behemoth is sitting on the island above him in the sun. He'll want to stay well away, because of course adult crocodilos often eat baby crocodilos. He certainly looks like he could have done with a bit of orthodontic work as a youngster. I have met people with teeth like that, but they're universally sort of looked at with surprise. I had a botany lecturer who had teeth very like that. funny fellow. Andre, let's go and have a look at the hippopotamus. That crocodile's making me afraid. Tiffany, they're around. You know, baboons are not... We don't see them very commonly. And I suspect quite strongly that's got to do with the fact that the lodges don't like having baboons around, because baboons are a menace to lodges. They break in and they trash places. And so I think that they are warded off from lodges. They used to be shot all over the place. They aren't shot anymore, but they're certainly warded off by being chased and harassed if they come near the camps. And so I don't know where they are at the moment. We did have a troop at Djuma about 3 days ago, I think. That poor little hippopotamus has had oxpeckers, well, relieving themselves on him, which cannot have been particularly pleasant. I don't suppose he minds. He's going to his mum, you see. You say, Mum, the oxpeckers have done a doo-doo on me, Mum. His mother couldn't care less. And now the little one's laughing at him. They're two tiny little ones now. Oh, look at that little thing. Look how small they are. That one at the back can't be more than, I don't know, maybe a month or two old? Maybe a little bit older than that. Teething. Perhaps using a sibling's hock as a teething ring. I think the teenager's sort of warning off the others with that yawn. That really is very funny. I think Scuba Steve needs to come down here. Find some friends, you know. I'm sure maybe that's why Sarah left him. He had no friends. She got lonely. Let's go out tonight, Scuba. Oh, I don't want to go out tonight. I think we'll stay in and just think about things. Louise says Sarah's down here snuggling with Chitwa Charlie. Well, that's quite possible, Louise. Not much fidelity amongst these hippopotami. Just a quintessentially peaceful scene. You know, nobody ever really gets to experience the lodges at this time of the day because, of course, they're out on game drive, which is where they should be. But when I worked in the lodge and I had an afternoon off and I wasn't out in the field, this is the best time to be in a lodge, especially if it's got a water hole in front of it, because the light is soft. All of the staff are sort of getting ready for the dinner shift, which means everything's quiet. And then you get this golden light and always some sort of activity happening at the water. Best time. Just magic. Now, I imagine that I'm not talking to Sarah the hippopotamus. I'm not sure that her large feet would be able to use a telephone in order to tweet us on the hashtag SafariLive or use the chat stream on YouTube. Sarah, hippopotamus, as far as I'm aware, can suckle underwater and above water. I don't think there's anything that should preclude them from suckling out of the water. And I'm sure at night when they're walking with the herd and mum is eating grass, I'm sure they do suckle out of the water. They can certainly suckle semi in the water. So, you know, mum's lying in a puddle. I've seen them suckling like that before. So I'm going to say, yes, they probably can suckle out of the water. I stand to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case. I'll just try and tell you what it smells like now. At the moment, Wendy smells quite a lot like brake fluid because I managed to snap a brake line in the Tundi sighting, which is a bit unusual, at least a bit unfortunate. But otherwise, it's just a smell of water, dust, and the odd hint of smoke from the fire breaks. Let's head back now to Tundi.
Yeah, Thandi is now lying down here in the middle of the grass, not very far away from where I am. But I can see that the mission for Thandi is to ambush those impalas, as she is lying down facing the direction where the impalas are approaching from. So we are still going to wait a little bit and see any developments here. But I can promise you we might be lucky, because it seems like she is still having a lot of interest, a whole lot of interest on those impalas. So we're just going to wait here and wait until we see what is going to happen. So the temperature is now going down a little bit, is cooling, and which is a very favorable temperature for the cats to do their activities. So the chances are very there. So we'll just wait here and see what is going to happen. So we will be giving you the update. Still very quiet, lying down flat in the middle of those grasses. Very interesting to see how cats can hide. Nobody can realize that there is a cat hiding here. Such a very big cat. Not moving at all. So she's just pretending as if she's not there. Yes, Rainbow Day, that is what I'm going to do now. I am not going to leave Thandi today. I am going to go after Thandi until she gets her meal. Yeah, nothing is happening, so I can see that it's still very quiet, but I'm going to wait and see. She's very quiet. So now we can cross to the bushwalk and see what's happening on the other side.
Well, not very much at this stage. We're trying to head towards the dam because of that leopard that was sawing. And the reason why we want to do that is we want to try and see if maybe, just maybe, this leopard is going to come down for an evening drink. And we can find out who exactly it is. We checked Gallagher Pan first because this is obviously a place where animals will come and drink. And in fact, when we first arrived here, there was Impala, Nyala, and a little duiker that was also here. So it is a place where a lot of animals will congregate. And obviously a leopard would also probably have the same situation where they would want to come and drink at this time. And if that leopard vocalized once, it most certainly will vocalize again. And given that we were not very far from Gallagher Pan, we were just on the western side of Gallagher Pan, and we didn't hear it, would indicate that this leopard must be on the eastern side and maybe then is going to go towards the dam. So that's where we're slowly heading. We're going to try and drop into a drainage line and just follow the sort of lodge along, because we know a lot of the time leopards like to walk in those areas, and we'll have a situation where we get kind of maybe get lucky and bump into one. What you can see though from here is there's a Nyala that's just in the distance there, is watching us and is hoping that we sort of leave this area so it can come and have a drink before the darkness sets in, and it can then go back into the sort of thickets and hide. You'll find also with these Nyalas, they're quite clever. They know that they can get into the lodge, and so they try and then come into the lodge during the night for a little bit of extra safety. He's a beautiful big bull that is kind of there, and he's just kind of watching us from a distance. Even though it looks as though he's pretty sort of relaxed, he's still giving us a bit of an eye from the side of the head and making sure that we're not trying to chase him. So we'll just kind of leave him there. We'll try and leave this area so that the animals that want to come and drink can, because at the end of the day, we don't want a situation where we're making animals sort of leave their area in order not to drink. So we'll try and just kind of move out and let everybody come in and enjoy what they have waited all day to really enjoy. It's been obviously a warmish day today, so a bit of water would be quite nice. Ooh. Minamu, my most unusual leopard sighting. Sure. I've had so many crazy ones. I don't know, to be honest. I think it's a difficult one. It's kind of just trying to rack my brains of all the crazy ones I've had. The mating pair of leopards that stole the python from hyenas and put it up into a tree, that was pretty unusual. Tamba Hosana, little standoff. The Tandi Shongile fight, that was unusual. Anderson and Tingana and which was the other one now? Shorvonakele, all with aardvark kills up in trees. So I've had all three of them with aardvarks. I've had a lot of crazy sightings, to be honest. I've had fathers and sons feeding off carcasses together with Mvula and Shivambalana. I've had all kinds of random things. In fact, a crazy sighting with Karula, where she was had an impala kill on a termite mound, and she was joined by Nduna, Mishu, Jordan, and Nduna, Jordan, and Shivambalana and Shavinzi, all in one sighting. So there's 5 leopards together, which was pretty insane on Arathusa. What else have I had? It's been a lot. It's difficult to kind of say. So, you know, I've been very lucky with seeing a lot of leopard. It's part and parcel of being out in the Sabi Sands, is that you just get these insanely ridiculous sort of leopard sightings that you kind of come across, and every now and then you'll have a situation where you get something very unusual happening, and you know, you get lucky. I mean, the sighting that Sydney had a few days ago of 3 leopards and 3 lions, you're going to go a very, very, very long time until you'll see that again. So, you know, we're lucky in a way. Now it's just flown. But just straight through there, Dave, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little southern bobo. You see it through there? It's just low down in the Tambuertes, just kind of moving about. So it's not a bird we get to see very often. There, it's just flown. So it's just gone down onto that small branch there. They're birds that like these kind of undergrowth and these thickets. You don't get to see them very often. Quite shy birds. They make a beautiful call. And you can see it's got those black wings. The leopard's calling very, very, very close to us. So we're going to go and try and see if we can find it. It's not far at all. It's calling just going towards the dam. So those of you that are watching the dam cam, keep paying attention. Sounds like he's moving down this drainage line. So we're in the right place, that's for sure. Now we're going to try and get going. Right, now while we try and get a little closer, he's not far from us at all. Let's send you back across to Sydney, and we're going to try and see if we can get a view of this leopard for you.
So Tandi is now very much relaxed, and I can see she's still going. Now she's moving, and she's moving towards those impalas. Yeah, she still have got a lot of interest on those impalas. She has been hiding here for a while, but just ahead of Tandi, the impalas are feeding, not very, very far away from where she is now. So I'm still going to extend a little bit my patience and go further and see. Look, you can see she's looking at them. She's looking at the impalas there now. So I'm going to slowly approach carefully and making sure that I don't disturb her hunting activities. You can see she's looking at them again. Yeah, Kathy, Tandi, she's got the wind on her favor. I think Tandi have realized earlier on that the wind was not 100% on her favor, and then she decided to walk down diagonally and avoid the wind. And now where she is very quiet. There is no wind at all. So I can see that the wind is on her favor. So chances are very high that she might win the battle. There she's lying down again. So you can see that she's moving, she's slowly approaching and hiding, approaching and hiding. And those impalas, they are still concentrating, very stationary feeding. They are not aware of what is happening here. You can see some of those impalas are now on top of the termite mound, not very far away from where Tandi is. So all of them, they are concentrating 100% on their diet. So Tandi is now lying down flat. But I can see that the head, the focus of the head, it is still on those impalas. You can see the tail there is waving a little bit. That is where she is. So we are going to wait a little bit, much longer, just to see what is going to happen. Now that the sun has gone down, the thinking of Thandi might be very interesting. Still waving the tail there, no movement of the body. She's not that very far away from these impalas, eh? Just don't understand why she's wasting so much time. Only Thandi knows the reason why. Yeah, Brainmax, the tail, mostly when the cats are hunting, you will see the tail is moving a lot. So that is why you can see the tail is moving. But if you can see the size of the grass where this tail is moving and waving, they are much taller. Those animals, the impalas, where they are, they cannot even see at all what is happening here. Still very quiet, eh? Yeah, we are going to wait and see. I know it's going to take time, but something might happen. So, animals such as leopards, hunting for them is not very easy. So now we are going to Tristan. Tristan has got Tingana, so he's going to show us another leopard sighting.
Well, we haven't found him just yet, James. We're still looking. We've got our voices lowered and we're trying to just walk slowly through here and listen out what's going on. There's a few nyala off to my sort of western side that are hidden in these thickets right up against Vuyatela camp. And I think that if he's anywhere, he's somewhere in these sort of thickets moving maybe down towards the dam. Herbie's gone towards the road just to check the road and make sure that there's no tracks that side. We haven't come across any tracks yet, but we're trying to move quite quickly but stealthily at the same time, which is tricky for a big lad like me. And with Dave's he's got the sort of pack on. It's not easy for him to kind of get between everything. But this leopard is here very, very close by. And I'm sure if we just kind of get to the dam and maybe we're just a little patient and wait there, we might just get lucky. The thing is, though, is if he had walked towards sort of Vuyatela camp, we would have had a situation where you would have maybe heard those nyala barking. So maybe he's kind of just done a bit of a wider loop. Maybe he saw us and moved off quickly. It's difficult to say. Tingana's never the easiest to follow on foot. So we're going to try and kind of worm our way through and just see if we can get a little closer to the dam. But it's so exciting when you're on foot and you hear a leopard calling very close by. It makes you want to kind of just quickly sort of come through. Now I'm going to hold this branch for Dave so that he doesn't get smacked in the face. There we go. That's going to be much easier for David to get through that way. So Paula, a leopard on foot is the best fun. It is very, very cool, except if it's Thandi and she's in a bad mood. Then it's not so much fun. Then it's more like you feel like you're about to be eaten alive. Same with her mother, Karula. On foot every now and then was a little bit on the sort of grumpier side of life and used to make her sort of, what would you call it, her sort of, I don't know, her intention was clear that she didn't enjoy you finding her on foot, and so she used to be a little bit grumpy from time to time. But, you know, most of the time when you find a leopard on foot, it's one of the most thrilling experiences ever. For a shy, elusive animal to be able to find it, and when you see those spots just up ahead of you kind of disappearing, and it's normally these sort of fleeting glimpses, you just kind of see them slinking through. It's absolutely amazing. Obviously, Shongila and Hosanna are a little different. They were kind of spoiled us in terms of walking leopards, but, you know, normally it's just quick glances, quick view, and then you go. But it's a very, very exhilarating experience trying to track a leopard. So we're just going to try and see if maybe we go towards the dam, we get lucky. Nobody's seen anything on the dam cam because we're almost there now and we haven't picked up any tracks or heard anything yet, but he was most definitely somewhere in this general vicinity, kind of moving around. So hopefully, we'll kind of either hear him again or we'll have a situation where we can pick him up close by. So I believe a few of you agree that Thandi can sometimes just be a little on the temperamental side. I don't know, I think she's just she's just making sure we all know who's boss out here and that she's most definitely not going to take any nonsense from anyone. She's a bit like that one school teacher that we've all had, that was very, very, very strict and was very, very good teacher, but very strict and used to shout at you and, make sure that you always had lots of homework. That's how I imagine Thandi would be. And so I don't know, I quite like her. I think that sort of feistiness and that little bit of edge makes her who she is. And it's why she's one of my favorites, is because you just have to always be on your toes with Thandi, and you've always got to be a little careful around her and make sure you don't become too complacent. Cats like Hosane make you just kind of become so relaxed around them, whereas, you've got to realize that they are still predators. Rosh's back. I do actually remember my first cat sighting on foot, and I'll tell you why I remember it, because it goes hand in hand with what we were talking about earlier about unusual sort of sightings of leopard. So my first leopard on foot was when I started as a trainee at Singita. We had a sort of like a sort of course before we got selected to go on the training course. So it was a whole bunch of guys came together and then they selected a few people out of it. And we had set up camp on sort of banks of this small little drainage line, much like the Mulawati. And then in the morning we had kind of sitting there and we just started to hear the barking of Nyala, and we kind of walked out of our campsite and got to the road. And as we kind of got to the road, down the road was Ravenscourt and her 2 young boys, followed by Shinzele, her older cub. And I'll say it's unusual because it was a mother with a 3-year-old male and then 2 1-year-old males. So 4 leopards walking down the road together, and they were kind of just walking along and they were not fazed by us at all. And we had this most magical sighting of these leopards coming by, and it was unusual because of her sort of tolerance for that older male. Generally with leopard, you'll find a situation where, as we've seen with Thandi or Karula, they chase their older siblings away to have their new cubs. With her, she kept Shinzele around and kind of raised him with the younger boys, and he only actually left her when the 2 young boys left her at around 2 years old. So she had not only these 2 sort of smaller males, so she had this massive male as well. So she used to have to kill 3-4 times in the space of 2 or 3 days to kind of feed these 3 brutes that were kind of in her sort of care. So it was an amazing thing to see, and it was kind of, I suppose, much like sort of Sydney's start here, it was kind of not going to get much better than that on foot in a very long time, and so I kind of set myself up to sort of struggle to kind of compete with that from then. But anyway, talking about leopards and talking about them moving around, let's go back across to Sydney. It sounds like Thandi is back on the move.
Yeah, Thandi is now up, and I can see that she's standing still. Now she's moving a little bit towards the southern side, and the impalas are much more on the eastern side. So she's now avoiding the impalas. She's now heading towards the eastern direction. So it seems like she gave up now. But we're still going to follow her and see what is going to come out. So we're going to have to move around that area there and try to follow her and see where she's heading to now and her next plan. Yeah, it has been a lovely sighting so far, although the hunting activities were not completed. So let's see what is going to happen and what she's thinking about to do next. Yeah, the leopards are some of the beautiful and interesting cats. So they are very much beautiful cats, eh? Yeah, so I can see that right ahead of me, I have got Thandi. She just got disappeared behind the bushes. So now we can go to James, who's got something interesting on his side.
No, not really. Nothing interesting other than my face, which is probably not very interesting at all. Jean-Andre is agreeing with me again, second time in one day, that my face is not in the slightest bit interesting. We're driving down up towards Juma Dam, not Juma Dam, what's it called again? Boyatella Dam, and that is because, or Gowrie Dam, that's what this real name is. That's just near the camp where the dam camp is, because apparently Tingana, or a male leopard, was heard soaring there. How anyone identified which male leopard it was calling, I'm not sure, but I'm most impressed that you managed. That said, I know that Hukumuri has a fairly sort of husky, godfatherish type of call. We also have the FLIR thermal camera out. Don't we, Jean-Andre? You want to put my hand on screen? No, you don't. Okay, never mind. That's what this pretty colourful picture is. Yes, there's my hand. See? Yes. Very good. Oh, and my jacket. And the fist. My fist of lava. Fist of lava. Bah. You see that, John? I look like I was in a science fiction film, making light with my hands. Let me show you. We've probably driven past the leopard. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. I can't help myself. Can't help myself. Let's drive on to Quarantine Club. I don't know where Tristan is, but obviously he can't be far from home with the light like it is. So I'll go up this way. I hope he's not far from home, doggedly tracking Tingana with a torch. It's not a wise idea. Very silly, in fact. Now, those of you who heard the leopard calling on the dam camera, oh, he's where I had Hukumuri on foot. Can you tell me where you heard this leopard calling? Do you have any idea? Was it north, south, east, west, up, down, sideways, in ways, down from the dam camera? Andre, don't look at me like that. I'm just giving the people an impression of where I want to know. No? Louise, any ideas? Oh. All right. So Tristan says he also heard it, and it was quite close to the link that goes to Galago Pan. We go up this way, down this way. I suppose I should get out a Sportslight. Sportslight, everybody, is the Shangan word for spotlight. In case you're wondering what a Sportslight is. Here is my Sportslight. Yes, it does sound German. It is not German. It is in fact a Shangan term, spotlight. All right, we're going to look for Tingana, but why sit with us looking for a leopard when you could have one at your feet?
Yeah, Thandi is now very much relaxed. She is just relaxed in the middle of the grasses, looking at the direction where she came from earlier. But the impalas are also still feeding, heading towards the very same direction she's looking at now. So we are not going to give up. We are still going to carry on and try and see if maybe a kill is going to happen here. You can see that the ears are concentrating, and the whole concentration of the head is facing that direction. Where she's facing is where the impalas are feeding now. So basically what Tandy did was she came in and then she stalked the impalas, and she tried her level best to get the best approach direction, but it seems like it was very difficult. Maybe the wind was not in her favor at the beginning, and then which then gave her another option alternatively to change and go down, whereby she decided to give up, and then she's coming back again, and where she is, the impalas are ahead. So I am battling to see what Tandy is trying to do, because she has been going just backwards, forwards. But her concentration is still at the same animal. So it means the mission is the impalas. She just wants to get hold of the impalas. Maybe all these other natural factors such as the wind are the ones which are disturbing her plans. You can see there she's lying down now. Again camouflaged. You can see how difficult it is to see if there is a leopard in the grass. If that cat is not moving, it's not easy. It's never easy to see that cat from a distance. You can see that now she's completely gone. It's difficult to figure out if that is an animal. You can see where that, where she's, she is very much camouflaged. You can see when she's steering her head to that direction, that is where the impalas are. And that is what she's trying to look at. So she's not done with what she was intending to do earlier. So maybe if we can yes, Keteras, that is my hope. Now that the sun has gone down, maybe she's going to be more active and show us her full plan. Because now this is favorable. This is the best kind of weather for them to chase animals. Very quiet again. But I'm not going to leave her. I'm still going to try and investigate and wait and be patient and see now what is going to happen. So we can quickly now go to Tristan. He's got something interesting for us on the other side. I am going to wait here and see what is going to happen.
Well, we don't have something interesting, but I will tell you what is interesting is that we took a break. Well, not a break, but we sat purposely trying to sort of hope that he would call again and maybe walk kind of down towards the dam, and then we could just come from one of these thickets and just come out and peer and just see him. But I think that this leopard was watching us sitting on a log, because all three of us were sitting in a row on a log, because he was on the sort of our western side. And then as right now, when James was just coming across the dam wall, he called directly behind us, but not far, like 50 meters. And so I think he saw us and just crept behind us and just went into the bush, which is somewhat sort of sobering and scary at the same time, particularly because it's now starting to get rather dark out here. But it just goes to show you, you've got to be aware of what's going on all the time. But James hopefully will find him. He's really close to where we were, and hopefully we can have a situation. There we go. So James apparently has found him. So off you go. We'll see you all tomorrow morning.
Well, I'd love to say I found Tingana. There are at least 3 or 4 people who deserve credit here. First of all is Herbert and Tristan, of course, who heard him calling, pointed us in this direction, said come this way. And then, of course, unfortunately, I must regretfully give credit to Jean-Ray, who saw him, because I drove straight past him. And so my shame is enormous, mostly, of course, because I have to give Jean-Ray credit, which hurts my heart to the core of its being. Go ahead, Herbert. I'm sorry, Herbert. Thank you very much, Herbert. I appreciate very much all the efforts that you made. Herbert has told me on the radio to say thank you to him. He calls me on the radio. He says, "Come in." Go ahead. He says, "Say thank you." Louise, would you tell them on the radio, please, that I was publicly thanking them, that I was so overwhelmed by their brilliance. He's just giving a little bit of a growl there, which was interesting. Look at his ear. I haven't seen that ear that sort of sideways before. So I'm going to move slightly. This cat does not look very comfortable to me. Just slightly uncomfortable. I'm not sure why that should be the case. It could be because he knows the bushwalk was following him, and that one floppy ear makes me wonder if he hasn't had a little fight, perhaps. There we go. That's got out of his field of view there. Is that right, Andrew? I'm just going to watch him carefully. He's got something wrong with that ear. There's no blood. But he just let out a rather angry growl. There we go. You see, he seems to be relaxing slightly now. If he has had some kind of fight or some kind of contact with another leopard, it will have his, his blood will be up. So he will not be particularly pleased. And that means that anything that will irritate him or set, anything that sometimes might irritate him will set him off completely. He's calling now. Apparently Tristan says he caught a warthog yesterday, and maybe that's what got his ear. That's quite possible. It's gorgeous. I'm listening to the fact that there are 3 leopard sightings at the moment. And it seems like Guchava is on Torchwood. Sorry, I'm just listening to the radio, everybody. Okay, we're going to go to infrared, everybody. Rex, there's a little 2-track where there was a kill going east of the road. He's just on that. Right, so he's calling. That's a territorial call, in case you were wondering. He's obviously been doing that for a while, because that's what led... Oh dear. Oh no. Oh, that's not nice to see. That's really not ideal. Killed a warthog yesterday, apparently. I don't know what's happened to him. It's not nice to see, because obviously he's not going to kill anything with it like that. I wonder if he killed a warthog yesterday. I think the fact that he's not with that warthog now tells me that something stole it from him. That's why his head's looking so lopsided. Yeah, and we had all those hyenas this morning. I wonder if that wasn't what injured him. Oh, this is really not nice to see. I mean, I don't mean to be alarmist, but he's done so well to get to this stage. And I feel like if he was to meet his demise because of a fight with hyenas, it would just be a hugely unjust thing. Now, let's not all panic like I'm panicking, basically, because, of course, it's entirely possible that he'll be completely fine, that he's been injured plenty times before, and, you know, he's got through it. Let's go around the side of him there, John. Let's see if we can get a better view of his face. It's definitely why that ear's like that. He's been smacked up. I think Tristan's right. We had the hyenas making a huge noise earlier on today, early morning, when we were out with the thermal drone. We found the hyenas. We didn't find what they were eating. We didn't find what they were making such a noise about. We certainly didn't see him on the drone, though. I don't think. It's very difficult to see what you are looking at on that thermal drone. I don't like seeing that, I must say. Hold on tight, everyone. And of course, Tingana is not a fan of being seen on foot, so I wonder if he didn't see the bushwalk as well. Have you got that, Jandri? Is that all right? Yeah, good. What a relief. Andre says it's okay. Carl, I've got no way of knowing, I'm afraid. We as guides love to play vet. 99% of the time we're completely incorrect as to the extent and severity of their injuries. And I just remember very clearly, well, the greatest example was one of the Nkuhuma cubs who was injured at a buffalo kill. And I shall mention no names, but it was everybody just about came in and said, that cub's done for, it's broken its back, its third thoracic vertebra has been severed, it's, oh no, its hip's displaced, it's broken its hip, no, it must be the rear femur. I mean, everyone knew exactly down to the last medical detail what had happened to the cub, and everyone was certain, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was going to die. Well, 3 days later, it was absolutely fine. And in fact, probably still lives with the pride. So, you know, I don't know. Could be as little as a scratch, it could be as much as something broken. Anyway, Sydney is still with his consort. Let's go across to him.
Yeah, I've got Tandy again now. It's just that Tandy decided not to finish up with her hunting activities. So she's now away from the impalas. She is by herself. I'm going to follow her now and see her next plan. So the initial plan, it was not executed. So you can see now she's trying to give out her scent marks. And she's trying to sniff the beautiful, eh? So she is right in her territory. She she knows very well that the head of impalas we saw earlier belongs to this territory. So she will manage to get one of them, but not today. So you can see that she's trying to sniff the leaves there. So all she's doing is about scent marking now. Slowly going back to the road now. So I'm just gonna keep following and see any developments. So now let's head back to James. He's got Tingana for us.
Right, well there he is. He's not moved at all. He's replaced. No, he's remained is the word that I was going for there, on his termite mound, where he can see what's going on. But it would be very interesting to know. We're going to flick between the thermal camera and the infrared camera, and so you'll see various pictures of him. But it'll be very interesting to know also why his ear is so droopy, as if, you know, I don't know, I hope there hasn't been some kind of neurological damage. Maybe it's just been bitten very badly. I really feel like that were this to cause his end, it would be insufficiently grand for a leopard of his stature. What I don't know. I didn't see any wound, any obvious wound. He's obviously got something wrong with his foot or with his leg. He's listening to something. It's quite possible he's just been bitten twice, you know. He's been bitten on his ear and bitten on his right leg. So, very difficult to tell what's caused the problem. You know, up until the time that he got so sick, about, when was that? Can't remember the times these days. 3 months ago, say. He got very sick. He had a limp. He always had a limp on his left front foot. That limp went away after he had recovered from his illness. And now it's the other leg. It's the right front that's got a serious issue at the moment. Well, it is very nice, of course, that we can swap between these two different pictures. It's quite fun. So this is the infrared light. There's no artificial light on him at all. Mr. Public, climb a tree. I think he's going to struggle to climb a tree, to be honest. He'd need both front feet and, you know, his shoulders to do it. So I think he'll struggle. You know, if there's no bone damage or ligament damage, if it's just a puncture wound or something like that, he'll get through it. He'll scavenge a bit of food here and there. He'll be able to perhaps eat a tortoise or a terrapin. He's very full already from a lot of food, so it's not like he can't go 3 or 4 days without a meal. But, you know, if it's something more severe, like a snapped ligament or something, well, he's going to be in trouble. And I can only think that whatever caught him was very, very stealthy, because he is such a careful cat. He's unlike Tundi, much less sort of the aggressor.
Tundi is now trying to investigate something, and she's decided to run away. I'm not just sure what is chasing her, but earlier on I have picked up that she heard something coming from the bushes. So we're still going to try and follow her and see what she's trying to do. There she is. You can see that she's a bit concerned about something. And there she is, moving slowly with her whole concentration on the right. So maybe she has spotted something, so she's gonna show us what is entertaining her now. Yeah, yeah. There was something which there's something which definitely ran away here on the right side where you can see now she's going. She is definitely after something. She's definitely after something. Yeah, there she is. I can see that now. She's very much busy, and she is going towards the western side. I'm not too sure what is bothering her. You can see there she is stopped again, and then she's deciding to move very quickly again. Now she just now disappeared by the tall grass. Just try to see if I'm gonna pick her up again. She just got disappeared somewhere here. Oh yes, there she is. You can see she's very excited. Something is going on here, because earlier on, before her first run, there was some noise coming from the bushes, and then she ran, stopped and investigated. So now she's moving, stopping and listening. So her whole concentration is on the right side. I'm just not sure what she's trying to get hold of at the moment. You can see now she's disappearing by those bushes there. She is still highly concentrating to what is going on. So you can see that she's now going deep in the thick bushes where the noise was coming from. So I'm just going to pull forward a little bit and see if maybe we're going to have a better sighting from a different angle. So now let's move forward and see, maybe we're going to see something. Let me just have my spotlight on now so that I can see Tandy's eyes shining. Oh, it's a little bit difficult. Maybe she's moving towards the other direction whereby the eyes are facing forward. So now let's head to James. James has got Tingana.
Well, he's doing exactly what he was last time you were with us. Except now he feels like he's on the stage. Chandra, have you ever been on the stage? Oh, didn't you love the feeling of the lights turning onto you? Marvellous feeling, yes. Yes. Anyway, Tingana hasn't moved at all. He hasn't stood up again. I'm going to go with yes, he will recover. He needs 3 or 4 days, and that we must give him that space, of course. I don't think he's going to go particularly far from here with that injury, so we might well be able to keep tabs on him. Well, Kathy, he's calling because he's basically advertising that he's still strong and this is his area and keeping people out. It's I guess it's almost like a double bluff, saying this is my territory, don't come in here or you'll get swatted. Nobody knows whether he's telling the truth or he isn't telling the truth, And I think it's a very good strategy. What he doesn't want to do is go quiet and try and hide somewhere if he doesn't absolutely have to, because that's going to encourage incursions from the likes of hukumori and other leopards. What happened to him when he got sick is that he got very sort of silent. He got completely silent because he was unable to call and mark territory and hunt. And it's no coincidence, I don't think, that hukumori invaded from the west during that period. So he will want to keep calling for as long as he can. I mean, up to today, I've never seen this leopard looking better than he does now. And unfortunately, obviously, just let his guard down for 1 second. Oh. Anyway, I hope he's okay. Doesn't he look magnificent? I'm just thinking it looks magic in that. Well, everyone, another safari is drawing to a close now. We have but 20 seconds left together. Tomorrow, I must just say that, of course, our drone tests continue in the morning, so the safari will run from 6:30 to 8:30. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been wonderful having your questions and your comments. Thank you for not insulting me. We will see you tomorrow at 06:30.